The hidden cheat codes at every job. Workplace secrets exposed. I worked in a customer service type position with a recorded telephone line. You should do what you think is best is really code for, you should do that, but on a recorded line, I can't tell you to do that. A really nice lady helped me recently with an insurance quote. It took a long time and I was only planning on confirming some complicated questions. Then I wanted to place the order online myself, but she'd helped me so much, so I asked, would it be beneficial to you if I placed this order now through you instead? And she paused for so long and then said something like your quote, "Oh, I'm just here to make sure you get the best service, sir." I can't remember her exact words, but her selective word choice told me everything I needed to know, so I followed through and I purchased it over the phone. I work in a casino, and the cheat code is, don't gamble. I worked at the library. The librarian in charge of the teen center had a policy that every rank-and-file employee underneath her was empowered to waive up to $50 in fines without asking permission or giving a reason. This was mostly intended to help teenagers who had lost track of some Arthur books when they were 6, and now as a result couldn't get what they needed for high school projects, but we were at liberty to use it for whoever we wished. So if they say no to waiving your fines at the circulation desk or any other desk, you may just get a yes in the teen center if you're nice to them. I changed some guy's whole adult life by doing it for him once. He didn't even ask me to. He'd always come in and get graphic novels from the teen section, but could only read them at the library because he owed $20 in late fees, and that was a lot of money to him. When he asked me if there was any way to get a comic sent over from another branch without placing a hold, which he couldn't do because of his fees, I just took his card and I waived those fees. I saw his face change as I gave it back to him and told him what I'd done. Suddenly, he was able to read at home whatever time he wanted. I think about that guy a lot. Doctor's office here. If you're trying to get in for a sooner appointment, call the office in the morning on days that you're actually available. When patients cancel their appointments the night before or the same day, we usually have it open because it's such short notice. That's your best shot at getting an appointment really soon. It often works even for providers who have long wait lists going out months in advance. Same thing for testing and imaging. Yep, the narrator has cancelled a medical appointment he had in the afternoon and rebooked to a newly open slot he had first thing that same day, because he was A, desperate and in a lot of pain, and B, not able to effectively do anything else anyway because of the pain he was in. Winning! Kind of. I found a vending machine at work that had an odd cheat code, if you happened to put in a $5 bill and then selected your beverage of choice. The vending machine would then give you 4 quarters, dispense your drink, and then return your crisp $5 bill automatically. The entire time I worked at that job, I kept a $5 bill in my wallet. I never mentioned it to my coworkers. I went to a casino for fun because I was curious about how craps worked. I watched for about an hour at a relatively slow table, asking questions and chatting with the workers. At one point, the worker I liked the most dropped this little gem. Anything that's big or in colors is where you'll lose money, gesturing at the center of the craps table. And then, with a little wink, he pointed at the rest of the casino, with all the colors and flashing lights and sounds. I mean, he wasn't wrong. I'll play a little craps for fun 1 or 2 nights a year, but I'm never expecting to make money on it. I used to work in IT support, and if you're good enough at it, computers and other technology will magically start working when you get close to it. People will try to recreate the problems they've been dealing with for hours and will be unable to do it. When I got my new work laptop, I couldn't get it to recognize my second screen. I fought with it for a while, checked the cables and drivers, tried to reinstall. It just wouldn't turn on at all. I asked the lady in IT to stop by my desk and look at it when she had time. Well, she pulled up to my desk, I plugged it in, and it turned right on and it worked perfectly. She said, "Oh, it's just scared of me," and walked away. I'm the IT guy. On paper, we're an office of 3 people. The little desk jet printer was acting up and refusing to print. I shook my finger at it and told it to behave, and it started printing a second later. Fear and humiliation will keep them in line. When booking a flight through our workplace travel system, only the cheapest flight is marked as green. If it's within a certain range of that flight, it's yellow, and it requires an explanation on why you need the more expensive flight, and your higher-ups need to approve manually. All other flights are red and need to be approved by even higher-up management, and usually get declined because you should get the green or yellow flights. If you want to book one of these red flights, because it's like a better connection or a better airline or a more convenient time, then you can just set the search parameters for the departure time to exactly what the preferred flight is departing at. The system then sees it as the cheapest possible flight for those parameters, and you can book without any further approval. Employers that make you take crappy flights are the worst. Like, I get wanting people to take the cheapest flight, all else being equal, but making someone lay over in O'Hare on a flight from Charlotte to Atlanta because it's cheaper should be illegal. Hey, you know how 90% of the time restarting a Windows computer fixes whatever issue you're having? Well, nearly all of our employees will say they've restarted their computer before calling for help. We have a script that we can run that shows, without them knowing, the last time they've rebooted. It's almost always a week or so. So the first thing we'll do is run another script to reboot their computer. We'll say we're running an update or fix, but we aren't, we're just rebooting it. And nearly always that fixes their issue. They think that we're wizards, but in reality we just did what they claimed to have done. I've stopped being that subtle. They'll say, "I just rebooted." I'll go Control-Shift-Escape. "Your uptime is 43 days. Awkward silence while I stare at them. That printing company that you're ordering from has a bunch of talented, bored artists ready and willing to design your crap for you, and it's usually cheaper than having a freelancer do it. I charge considerably more outside of work. Don't waste your time using AI to generate a design because usually the print company's art department has to redraw it to make it print ready, and then you're basically spending the money on a design anyway, and sometimes more than usual. All of this instead of having a professional make it right the first time. Even if you're not ordering something to be printed, a lot of companies will gladly just take an art-only order from you and pass it to the art team to work on. If your work will let you use your own credit card, do it. I racked up $40K in bonus cashbacks by using my credit card for travel in a 2-year period. They changed the policy and I was one of the only ones that was mad about it. I traveled professionally for 12 years. Between Hilton and Southwest, I didn't pay a dime for a single family vacation. It was pretty sweet. Not so much a job cheat code, but a neighborhood one. My parents used to have a lot of parties at their house. They only paid for one garbage can. After the party, there'd be 2 to 3 full cans at the curb waiting for the garbage collector. All of the cans were always emptied. The neighbor across the street did the same, but when he had extra cans, they were never emptied. He'd ask my dad if he got his extras emptied, and my dad would say, "Yeah, always." What he failed to tell the neighbor, who was also his friend by the way, was that he always left a 6-pack or a bottle or 2 of wine behind the cans for the trash collectors. Whenever one of the trash collectors saw my dad, they'd give him a little salute. Yes, I was a mail carrier for a year, and the senior carriers had their favorite customers they'd go out of their way for. If you know what time your carrier gets to your house, or if you have a spare cooler, an ice-cold water on a hot day will always be appreciated. Little snacks are nice. A $10 Subway gift card made my day once. An office gave me that one. They were right next to the Subway and noticed that I'd frequently get lunch out there because it was on the route I was covering at the time. Little tokens can go a long way. Balloon artist here. You can twist round balloons in half for garlands or semi-arches so you use way less balloons. Wait for the aggressive cat to hiss and you could squirt the liquid gabapentin in easier. When I worked at a kennel, we'd order the industrial-sized tubs of catnip. When cleaning the cat cages, we'd throw a literal handful of catnip at the aggressive cats and then clean the empty cages. By the time those were done, the angry cats were so medicated that they couldn't hiss if they wanted to. We'd move them to the clean kennels, clean out their old ones, and by the time we were done, they were already fully recovered and angry again. We have to clock in on our phones with GPS on. I found out if I'm late, I can just change the system time setting on my phone and it'll register the clock in at the same time. Then you can immediately change it back to automatic network time, and if you go back, you'll see the timesheet app be updated instantly. So if I'm 10 minutes late, I'll change the system time to 6 AM, clock in, and then put automatic time back on, and the app will say I've been clocked in for those 10 minutes. I haven't told any of my coworkers in fear of those idiots messing it up for me. Yeah, it's not even that I'd be worried about one of them tattling on me. I'd be more paranoid about some moron just bungling the entire trick by doing it so obviously that they'd be noticed, and the system would be fixed without me realizing it. The 6th floor has the poop bathroom. You can poop in peace there since there's like 3 people that work on that floor. Okay, I'm updating to clarify that those 3 people are only in the office like 1 day a week, and they have a bathroom closer to them on the north side of the building that they always use. The far bathroom on the south side of the building is the poop bathroom, so they won't fall victim to our vapors. If you're experiencing homelessness, don't tell an intake coordinator or social worker that you had a roof over your head the night before. It can negate your access to services or shelters. You didn't couch surf, you didn't stay with family, you slept in a park or in your car. Okay, and I'm adding as an update for my second biggest piece of advice if you're facing becoming unhoused, find any way to maintain a gym membership. You'll have access to showers, charging your devices, and a third space. Planet Fitness could save your life. I'm a social worker. I can confirm that first point. Prioritization is the key word here. That sounds very much like the show up on something to rehab rule. Medicaid pays for 28 days of inpatient substance treatment. However, Medicaid also pays for up to 3 days of inpatient stay for detoxification. So if someone shows up at a rehab under the influence, they can bill for up to 31 days. This led to certain social workers advising individuals that they needed to use before showing up at rehab, so they'd fail a substance test. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Genius? Self-storage. You get your monthly rent raised after a certain amount of time. After a long time, your rent can be a lot higher than a brand new tenant at the same unit size. Ask for a transfer, move your stuff, and now you're paying less rent per month. As long as you have the physical strength and the time to switch units, you'll save money. My company doesn't raise your rent for a whole year. That's the best in the state right now. Other companies can raise your rent after 3 or 4 months, which is highway robbery. Here's a double for you. As the IT guy, when employees needed a tech task done faster or wanted special treatment, they'd bring me a bottle of Mountain Dew or a Payday, a candy bar. I used my personal rewards account to earn points when ordering office equipment. With 200 employees and an owner who liked the latest and greatest tech for himself and his company, I'd rack up a truly significant amount of points quickly. I quickly figured out the employees with kids and those less fortunate, so I'd often use points to buy employees home computers and simple computer parts. Maybe not just my job, but if you get emailed something by someone you know is busy and you feel the urgency they convey is not warranted, just bounce it back to them asking a simple question in the guise of clarifying something. It buys you anything from a few hours to a few days. Actually, if someone asks you to do something, asking them to do something little first, like send you an email, file a ticket, or answer a question, is a great filter. If it's important, they'll do it. And if it isn't, they might not, and you just saved a ton of work. As a journalist, here's a cheat code. When interviewing someone important, always ask your most important question twice. Once at the beginning when they're prepared, and once at the end when they're relaxed. The second answer is usually more honest and revealing. Also, if someone says, "no comment," to a question, try rephrasing it as a statement instead of a question. People often feel compelled to correct you, giving you the information anyway. At Burger King, if you order a Whopper, heavy all, it comes with extra everything and looks more like the photo. Also, being an insider term, they sometimes think you're a secret shopper from corporate, and they'll make it extra good. I worked for a door-to-door cable and internet company. In some of their markets, their network isn't upgraded and cable signal isn't scrambled. So if you pay for internet from them, you can plug the coax cable into your TV and get channels 2 through 99 for free. Depending on the state, the company was called Suddenlink or Optimum or Altis, USA.
The biscuits and gravy special is $6.99, but if you ring in biscuits and gravy a la carte, it's like $5.75. I only do that for people who are nice to me.
Almost exactly how it is for me at work too. Sometimes people complain about the price and I'll see what I can do for the buttholes, but the nice people get a small enough discount that it doesn't make a difference to anyone that matters, but the customer feels appreciated and like I'm taking care of them. Often, I only take the taxes off the order. This is more like an industry cheat code. The best time to buy a new TV is Super Bowl week. All MFGs are trying to move all of their old flagship models during this time to make room for new ones, and you'll get close to Black Friday pricing on flagship models. On Black Friday, you should really be wary about TV deals. You should look at reviews. If there's a lot and they go back months, then just go for it. You've most likely got a deal because it's most likely part of their current TV lineup. If there's no reviews or they're only very recent around Black Friday, it was a Black Friday model the MFG threw together, usually with subpar cheap components, just for Black Friday pricing. There's a higher chance you'll have issues down the road with that TV. I used to assist a TV buyer for a major US electronics retailer. If you hire movers, ask if they offer cash discounts. You can easily get 10 to 15% off your bill by paying in cash. Just make sure you get a signed receipt when you make the cash payment. I get to book hotels for some of our employees. As long as we use the company Amex card for points, we're good. But there's no policy about hotel rewards. Long story short, I've got a crap ton of Hilton points for hotel stays that weren't my own. When asked if you have the time for another project, you don't. Your plate is full. Always act like you're super busy. That way, you can coast on your current responsibilities and not take on more. We did this because no matter the promises, we never received promised bonuses or raises for extra work. You see, a clean desk invites tons of new projects, other employees will try to shift work onto you, and you'll always look like you're available as you had nothing better to do than clean your desk. My wife is really efficient and was complaining about how she's always getting work from other people dumped on her because she's really good at her job. I told her to stop filing stuff when it's done. Let it pile up and build big stacks. It doesn't matter if it's complete or needs to be done. The perception is that you have a crap ton of stuff to do. She started to do that and let the stuff really pile up, and everybody stopped giving her extra projects and just left her alone. Yeah, I've done enough videos featuring clever employees who automate their jobs using Excel macros to know that when they tell people, they don't benefit. They just get more work added, and now they do more work than anyone else, and upper management cops the bonus. We've got to reward our employees for going above and beyond if we want them to do anything more than the bare minimum. If it's raining or if there's lightning, we don't work outside. Upper management doesn't seem to grasp the concept that welders use high amperage electricity and introducing water can kill people. You don't need keys to get into and start an armored Humvee. If you can physically get into a military motor pool, they'd be super easy to steal. Then you have a free Humvee. A guy in my town broke into the army base and stole a tank. Spent like 3 hours smashing stuff and rolling over cars. Did millions of dollars in damage and only stopped because he had run out of fuel. I'm a teacher now, but I worked for a long time in sales. If you want something, get it in specific language with zero room for interpretation. Our sales staff were trained to do our best, or things were subject to availability, but we can try to make that stuff happen for you. For a couple of examples. A lot was assured but never specifically promised. Our staff were trained to make it seem like the process would be seamless, easy, luxurious, and the poor lower-paid staff at the customer service center would pay the price when people called screaming and angry because they'd spent $1,000 and didn't get what was promised. Only customers who had things written in black and white terms were given what they'd actually wanted. It was really scummy, and I'm hyper-aware of sales language now when paying for things. I just purchased a car, and the finance guy finally asked if I'd worked in sales because I kept cutting off his vague assurances. Get it in black and white with specific language and read over it with a fine-tooth comb. If someone asks you to make a document for something, anything in a corporate office environment, make it immediately as a placeholder. Let's say they want a documented procedure for how to purge the flux capacitor. It's a simple enough process that half a dozen people know how to do, but it's not written down anywhere, and technically, if everyone quit on the same day, it would be an issue, so management wants it documented. But it's a low-priority task, not really worth your time, and you'll get to it eventually. Because if I don't do this TPS report, the finance department is going to be furious. To that I say, no. Do it immediately. Make a document with the right template, the company logo as a watermark, the document management system ID as a footnote, date stamps, and the version control block above the contents list. Give it the right title, the right file name, put the task as the first line of the document, and then write "Work in Progress." Label it as a draft and save it on the appropriate place. Maybe management won't come back to ask for it until next week and you'll have time to complete it in between other tasks. Or maybe some middle management is getting flack from upper management and he decides to take it out on you for being slow. When they ask for it, say you're working on it and only have a draft copy. Tell them where to find it in the network drive or document management system. Odds are they won't even read it. The middle management doesn't care what it says, he just needs to tell upper management there's a draft copy and it's a work in progress. Upper management don't care either. None of them are going to read it anyway. They probably won't even read the email about the draft document until tomorrow as it is. If someone does read it, well, it's a draft copy. It's not going to be complete. And when they ask to see it, that's a clue to start working on it ASAP. By the time they come back to say the draft copy is pathetic, it's just the title page. Oh, you've got an old copy. There's a newer one that's basically finished. It's under technical review and sign-off now. I'll send you a new copy. The alternative is to ignore the request, promise yourself you'll do it later when things are less busy, and then when management asks you again, you need to say, "I didn't do it, I've been too busy." So you ignore instructions and have poor time management skills. How unfortunate. This will come up in your employee evaluation. Back in the day when I worked on staff, we had a team of runners who'd constantly buy all the supplies for the business. Use the business phone numbers for discounts at the grocery store or CVS or any place we'd buy stuff from. Constant discounts and cashback, but first come first served to whoever cashed in the points. This was like a decade ago, but we used to get a free Orange Julius at the grocery store with enough points. I still always use the company phone number at every store, and so do 100 or more past employees. Those points stack up so fast, if I'm still using the number after 15 years, I wonder how many other people are using it as well. My old industry. Yo, guys, make friends with your professor. Do you know how many sample textbooks publishers send them? Literally just email them, and when I worked there, we didn't exactly look into why they're asking for another copy. Okay, I'm going to let you all in on a secret. Textbooks are expensive as heck, but the company doesn't make that much money because they spend a crap ton of money on R&D, printing, and marketing. Also, the authors, unless they're a super popular one, all have crap contracts where they barely see any money to the point where I've heard stories of them giving students the PDF instead out of spite. I worked in that industry as my job to get a job out of college, and it was one of the worst run companies I've ever seen. Nicest people ever, and everyone genuinely cared about education and helping people, but that didn't change the fact that they budgeted terribly.
People who saved all of their money at a young age instead of living, and now are 50+ years old. How are your lives today? Do you regret your life choices when it comes to the money aspect? We scrimped for decades. Our house is paid off. We have one car payment for, 3 more months. We have no credit card debt. Our retirement savings are ahead of schedule. Next week, we head to Iceland for my 52nd birthday. Totally worth it. Nobody wants to be 75, sick, and too poor to quit working, no matter how much fun you had as a 20-something. I did mostly stupid things in my early 20s, but I always put at least 15% of my income into 401ks with matching benefits. After 24 years living the corporate middle manager cube life, we had the means to purchase a wholesale nursery, and now I'm a flower farmer. I just walked through my greenhouse with my dog with a cup of coffee, and I do not regret a penny of savings. Losing my job as a fairly well-paid engineering manager in the defense industry and having to sell my house during the housing crash in the early 90s ended up, in retrospect, being a defining moment in my current financial well-being. It took roughly 6 years to get back to anywhere near my former career trajectory after landing a good position in the cellular industry. Once brunt, twice shy, my wife, a registered nurse, and I bought a home that was about half the price the bank said we qualified for. Our reasoning being, if one of us lost our job, most likely me again, because nurses, we wouldn't have to lose our home again. Fortunately, that never happened. We were both able to advance in our careers and were able to pay off our mortgage in 7 years, fully fund our son's college education, max out our IRA contributions, and have literally no debt. My wife just paid cash for a Subaru Forester, not the fanciest of cars or a status symbol by any means, but she loves it. Today is literally my last day at work before I voluntarily retire early at the age of 58. I feel like this is for the most part going to be very one-sided, except for people who have had just rotten luck in finances or maybe property investment or something like that, or bad tenants. We lived far below our means for nearly 30 years, saving all the money we could, bought a nice piece of property in the woods and started building a house, paid for construction out of our savings, took years to build, ended up with our dream house with no debt at all. Early 50s, I work in my profession part-time and my wife gardens, almost retired, totally worth it. While we were in savings mode, it didn't seem like we were sacrificing. Still had a great time with life, just drove cheaper cars and lived in a small house, took vacations to visit friends instead of going to resorts. Living within our means meant we had no money worries after we got out of our 20s. I didn't live while at college. While all of my friends went to university and are in mountains of debt, I went to a junior college to get all of my basic classes out of the way, and then went part-time to university, which was cheaper and I could afford it while working a part-time job. It was a local university, so I had to live with mom and dad until I was 26, which sucked and I missed out on a lot of independence that comes with going away to school, but it was worth it. I graduated in 6 years with my BA instead of 4, but with no debt. Without a monthly student loan, I was able to pay off my car quickly and can afford a lot of other things: phones, computers, vacations, tools, Legos, etc., without worrying about where the money will come from. My wife and I live comfortably, she did the same thing, and we currently have a house, a 3-year-old, and newer cars. I survived cancer surgery. All of those have been paid off except for the house, which will be paid off 10 years before it's due. We currently have 30 grand in checking and 42 grand in savings, in large part because we sacrificed when we were younger. Point of reference, 55 years old, did most everything the way you're supposed to. School, real jobs, lived conservatively, married, lowish tolerance for risk, yada yada. It depends on one's definition of living, but for the most part, most of my regrets are about not having lived or taken chances, or however you want to say it. It became apparent to me when I was an editor of a windsurfing magazine, and around a lot of the sailors we covered, I was the one with a steady job and paycheck. A wife, I owned a home, drove a decent car. These guys were drifters, irresponsible couch surfing, earning poverty wages, teaching windsurfing at various vacation destinations when they weren't competing. Most Most traveled around with pretty much everything they owned, their gear and clothes, and lived with their parents some of the time and friends and folks they met on the road at other times. Rarely did these guys have health insurance or more than a couple $100 to their name at any one time. Yet these losers on the fast track to nowhere spoke multiple languages, traveled the world, and experienced things that I never did or will. Plus, if I compared notes with any of them now, 15 plus years later, our lives probably wouldn't be all that different. It's not like I'm some multi-millionaire or saving lives or changing the world. I'm just a regular schmuck with a regular job like most of them likely are. But when we reflect, they've got a crap ton more cool stuff to remember than I do, much of which probably shaped them to be as cool now as I thought they were back then. I'll be 50 in February. I was a workaholic in my 20s and 30s and tried to save money, in that I didn't travel, take vacations, buy new cars or new clothes, etc. I missed out on 2 women who could have been great wives and mothers and instead married an insane person at 34. It took me a decade and her adultery for me to realize I could never change how her brain worked. She had 3 diagnosed conditions, and I finally got out. Now I'm too old to remarry or have children, and due to bad luck and 2 recessions, I have little to show for it. Although I do live in a nice house because my father left it to me when he died. I'm a tad regretful that I didn't live when I was young and had more energy. Many of my friends did and still do get into relationships and travel, have children, and live life to the fullest. I'm getting to the point where I don't have the will to try again. This is the first time I have written this publicly. Definitely unfortunate about the crazy wife. I don't think you're going to find anybody in this thread that says, "Oh boy, I wished I had lived a little more in my 30s and now my spouse is dead and it was all a waste." What you'll find are people who lived the life they wanted to live. If traveling the world wasn't important at age 21 or 50, I doubt it will become hugely important at age 51. And if it does, awesome for them. The world has changed a lot in the last 30 years and they'll have different experiences than someone who, say, traveled, partied, spent money earlier in life. Each has its own pros and cons. Not to be a negative Ned here, but I just want to point out that all the savers who died before being able to spend their nest egg won't be commenting for obvious reasons, although I'm sure their next of kin were grateful. I'm a 27-year-old that saves and invests more than 50% of my income, so I'll probably be the kind of person you're referring to around 50 or so. I think the relationship between living and spending need not be so highly correlated. I think many people have consumerism addiction where they need to buy a product to get a dopamine hit, whether the product adds to their life in a meaningful way or not. I live in a cheap apartment, drive a used car, eat food I make mostly myself, go on long hikes on trails where I'm not charged, train for and compete in marathons a couple of times a year, surf, never buy a new board. There's no reason why living needs to be so expensive that it results in no money being saved. The routine for many people seems to be work plus suffer, purchase product to feel relief, put product in garage amongst the other thousands of things you don't use, bank and investment account remains at $0. This is not a good cycle. Nah, wait a minute. He's got a point. Yeah, I definitely nominate this one so far as the best one I've heard. I'm an aging Gen Xer and it was totally worth it. House is paid for, so the mortgage money goes to investment, kids, and fun. My wife was able to quit her job and stay at home since one salary was enough now. She may go back to work just to keep busy and because she wants to. We almost never paid interest on anything except the mortgage when we had it. Credit cards paid in full each month. We saved to buy cars and never financed them. We also keep cars for 10 to 20 years to maximize their value. My wife is a fanatic couponer and saved hundreds every month. She also just knows her prices and knows a good deal. So when it's time to spend, we spend wisely. I also insist on quality, so we will spend more if something is worth it. Additionally, we paid off the house in 10 years rather than 30. Between the cars, house, and credit cards, we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on interest, which all went to investments. We max out our 401k contributions each year. IRA for wife now. I know things are harder now and I feel for the millennials who want to do what I did but just can't. I work with many of them. I'm the old guy at work and they are great people. All smart, aware, and hardworking. I don't see the entitled thing at all. Maybe I live in a bubble, but this generation is pretty cool. Learn from parents who grew up in the Depression with 6 children. We were still able to live below our means and never felt like we were going without. If you use your imagination, there are plenty of things you can do for free and have fun. We made it a point to set aside part of my check for first into a retirement account. My wife did not work, but worked hard staying home with our kids and housekeeping. Paid off the house in 17 years instead of 30 and actually retired early. All our children are self-sufficient and we are worth well over 7 figures. The funny thing is, even with all this money, we still don't splurge but have everything we need. I think the trick is to realize the difference between needs and wants. I have to thank my parents for this. We always asked ourselves, do we need this or want this? Also ask yourself if you can buy this used. We have always bought used cars with cash and kept them until the wheels fell off. We also gave generously to local charities as we felt so fortunate. So here's my deal. Retired at 52 but got killed earlier with a bad divorce and still managed to retire early. I've been sailing a yacht for 7 years now, halfway around the world. How? Absolutely put a minimum of 20% of your gross income away. If you can't get most of that into a tax-deferred account, you should be looking at 25 to 30%. Cold hard reality, no magic and no wishing. That's a big chunk of your income. If you haven't started it, it will hurt too much, so you'll likely fail. I always advise you start with what you can manage, then increase it when you get a raise. As in, up your savings by at least half of the raise. Get to 20%. Get that money into the market while young. Try to get it automatically deposited into your retirement account so you don't see it, so you're not tempted. Other tips: get out of debt. Debt equals slavery. Never borrow unless you must, as in a house, buy a car that you can afford to pay with cash. Save for it if you must. It's an old concept, but credit is for the weak and those who will work into old age. Face it, you're a working stiff. The only time you pay yourself is when you invest in your freedom, your retirement. All other expenditures prolong your enslavement.
Yeah, man, we're all nothing but sleeping slaves for the government, man.
I'm 44, so I'm not 50 plus yet, but I've invested mostly 401k, as much as I could afford since I started my first real job in 1994. As long as the economy doesn't do another 2008 anytime soon, I'm on track to retire by 55, maybe a year or two earlier with some luck. We simply don't live like we've got a lot of money. My wife's car is a 2008 Kia. Until a few months ago, I was driving a 2000 Saturn. I bought a 2013 Chevy Volt, used, and love it. I love not having to pump gas all the time, and I end up spending less to drive that way. Electricity is cheaper than gas. I gave my 2000 Saturn to my daughter to have something to drive at college. My eldest started college this year, and while she will have a little bit of student debt, a couple thousand each year, we'll probably pay it off once our mortgage is paid off in a year or two. It was more of a cash flow issue than anything. The original plan was to have the house completely paid off by the time the eldest started college, but we had a couple of years where we had to stop paying ahead on the mortgage due to the unexpected medical expenses. So now we're a little behind schedule on that. When we were looking for houses 15 years ago, the realtors were trying to get us to buy houses based on what we could afford, which meant that they were trying to get us to buy McMansions. I had to fire one realtor because she wouldn't stop, even after we told her we weren't interested in anything beyond 2.5 times my annual salary. So yeah, we could be living in a house that's valued at 2 or 3 times the one we live in, but then I wouldn't be retiring at 55. Honestly, it's all about delaying gratification and intentionally not choosing the most expensive thing you can afford. Our kids get 3 presents for Christmas, and none of them cost more than $30. That's better than my folks could afford, but it's not extravagant. I have work colleagues who spend $300 plus on their kids per Christmas. That's crazy to me. Our newest car until a month or two ago was a 2008. Many people won't delay gratification that long. They want a new car every 3 years. By taking care of what you have, it can last a lot longer. My eldest is driving the 2000 Saturn, and despite having 120,000 miles, it looks and runs like new. I learned to do regular maintenance myself, changing brakes, fluids, tires, even replaced the air conditioning compressor with one from a junkyard years ago. That Saturn has never had anything other than synthetic oil, things like that. You take care of stuff, it lasts a long time. And don't be so prideful that you have to have new stuff all the time. I mean, is impressing your neighbors that important to you that it's worth an extra 15 years of work? Not to me it isn't. Based on how things are sitting right now financially, we're on track for compounding interest to take over within a decade and match our income from working. At that point, we won't be able to spend it all unless our taste changes dramatically, and I wouldn't expect that. Once we reach that point, it'll just be a matter of slowly shifting all the investments to lower and lower risk, like rental income, bonds, and money markets, until the income stream is pretty safe, and then I won't work anymore. Okay, I'm craving a different perspective on this now. I'm 46 and don't really have much of a retirement. I was a teacher in the South and mostly just lived paycheck to paycheck, just getting by. But this isn't really about me, although I'm sure the circumstances has colored how I view money and savings. My 2 sisters and I grew up poor. Although so we really had no idea just how poor we were. My father worked a factory job with all of the overtime he could get while my mother stayed home with us till we were in 5th grade. My father had refused to allow her to work before marriage. My mom worked and lived with her parents, saving virtually every cent she made for her future home. After marriage, my father decided to spend her savings on a 2-bedroom trailer to sit on my grandfather's property instead of investing in the home of which my mom had always dreamed. Years went by and the house they had hoped to build no closer, and the trailer falling down about our ears. They had the house plans but no money to build, and my father refused to take out a loan, insisting that they pay for it as they could. At this point, after countless arguments, my father agreed to allow my mom to return to work. I was in 5th grade. I remember watching our house slowly take shape behind the trailer. Mom had promised we could have a sleepover when it was completed. We moved into the mostly complete house my sophomore year of high school, but much work remained and still remains. My mother died of pancreatic cancer when she was 53, having never seen her house completed or driven a new car. She saved and scraped her entire life and never got to enjoy the things she most wished for. This was nearly 25 years ago. So yes, I understand the necessity of saving, but more so, I understand the importance of spending and enjoying life while you have it. I'm 30 and saved to a fault until I started my own company 3 years ago. I'm already considerably way ahead of my peers and have opportunities to get in deals that most wouldn't be a part of. The first 100k is tough, but compounding interest is a real thing. I have always lived well below my means, and the freedom I have now was completely worth skipping the 2k spring breaks during college. I wasn't sure the saving would be worth it, but it absolutely, completely is and was. I don't save as much anymore because my net worth is mostly tied to my business. I still save more than most, but not 50 to 70% of my income like before. When I lost 35k in a month of business ownership, saving $3 on coffee seemed a bit trivial. Bonus, it's true. Money won't make you happy. Not having money will make you unhappy. But having 1 million instead of 500k isn't really life-changing. I plan on making a lot more because I enjoy creating value, and that's how capitalism works. I don't think anyone needs more than 10 million, but that's just me. 300k guaranteed a year in interest and dividends without touching the principal, it's pretty good living. Spending 1,000 a day for the rest of your life would be exhausting. My opinion has changed before, but I value my time more than money now. Getting from 10 to 100 million seems like a whole lot of work and risk and stress for not very much change in lifestyle. I have employees making well above 70k magic number and they're still broke and trying to keep up with the Jones. Living paycheck to paycheck seems horrendous. Your 45k truck doesn't make me think you're cool. It makes me think you're stupid. Minimalism solves a lot of problems. Spend on what makes you happy, not on what other people might think of you. Buy quality over quantity and always live below your means. When I first started as a nurse, I had a patient who was in his early 50s. I was his nurse for 3 days in a row and got to know him and his family relatively well. The background is him and his wife had saved all of their lives so they could retire early and comfortably, working pretty long hours and sacrificing experiences so they could eventually enjoy retirement. They had retired 6 months prior to his hospitalization and had bought a large house and an RV so they could travel across the USA. Shortly after retiring, he had started acting odd and they went in for a checkup. He was found to have a large glioblastoma and was given a life expectancy of about 7 months. He had already started having personality changes and the wife was in tears most of the time, at least when I had him. At the end of my shift on my last day, she gave me a hug and told me that she would have done things differently if she could. She said she wished she would have worked less and enjoyed life more rather than always looking forward. She whispered, "All the money in the world doesn't matter if you don't have anyone to spend it with." I remember seeing his obituary a few months later, but the moment really stuck with me. My wife and I are saving a lot now, but we're making sure not to restrict ourselves too much because who knows, life is too darn short. Even though it really sucks that that guy died before he could use the money or do whatever the hell they wanted to do together, I think it's probably good to know that at least, your significant other is going to live relatively comfortably with the money that you saved, even if you can't enjoy it with them. It's a balance. It's very important to save money and invest early if you want to retire at a reasonable age. This doesn't have to mean living like a hermit. Learning to be more resourceful, less spendthrifty, and more self-reliant is not only great on the wallet, but I have found to be very rewarding. I'm scraping by in my mid-30s, had little extra income in my 20s that I used to travel and see things. Probably could have paid off my car with it, but I don't regret it at all. I could never have had the experiences I did and met the people I did if I had waited until I was 60, and I would have missed learning about the world and different cultures that has shaped who I am today. If you have the chance to do something, take it. We're all going to die and we're all getting old. Make experiences to make life fulfilling and worth living. You won't need to travel as much when you're old, weak, tired, and no fun. Old people who have lived full lives are happy. Those who haven't are miserable. I think I'm just going to refer to the other things and be like, no, you can still have fun and, spend your money wisely. Like, yeah, you probably should have paid your car off, to be honest. But whatever. I was always worried about balancing the present with the future when it came to money. The odds are very good that you will live to a retirement age, so not preparing for it is foolish. That being said, it's no fun going through life only preparing for the future and not living when you're young and capable of doing so much. My solution, start a 401k type account as soon as you start your career. If there's a company match, ramp up the percentage to get the full match ASAP. Every time you get a raise, increase your contribution by 1%. Hopefully, your raise is more than 1% and you will still see an increase in net pay. Never touch that money. Roll it over if you change jobs. Invest somewhat aggressively since you are in it for decades. No need to be timid. I topped out at 12%, but with pensions pretty much gone, 15 to 20% is more realistic. Most people don't understand the concept of compounding interest. The first few decades might not seem that impressive, but the last decade of your savings can amount to a crap load of money. Not necessarily about this topic. My first roommate at med school in the Caribbean was a nice guy who studied real hard. Never drank. I forced him to come out and party maybe once. He finished everything without taking any breaks. He got accepted to a great residency program with a dual specialty a few weeks before his 23rd birthday. I spoke with him around the time and he had a head full of gray hair and put on a lot of weight from not working out. He said he felt like he was about to turn 43 and he looked like it too. He absolutely regretted not hanging out a little more while the rest of us looked up to him and his work ethic. It really is as simple as find a healthy balance. I mean, I am more the person that spent money on trips, going places and doing things, but as I get older, I'm getting to that point where I'm like, yeah, it's time I start buckling down and putting my money in investments and all that stuff to try and, get ready for the future.
Reddit, what's the best rumor you've ever heard about yourself? Not me, but a dude I was in high school with apparently died in a motorcycle accident. Goodbye posts for him flooded my Facebook feed. Days later, we found out he was just playing pool somewhere and had no internet connection. Must have been hilarious for him. After just 2 days of 8th grade, I had E. coli that landed me in ICU for 6 weeks. The rumors spread like crazy about what happened. Some said I was poisoned. Others thought I had stomach cancer. At the varsity football game, the announcer asked for prayers as he told everyone I wasn't expected to make it through the night. No doubt I was really sick, but my favorite was that I was airlifted to Florida for a stomach transplant. Since no human stomachs were available, it was a cow's stomach that would be transplanted. The best part about that is, if the first one didn't work, they have 3 more chances. A few years ago, I volunteered in a desolate little village way up in the northwest corner of Georgia, the country. Then, as now, I was a brown-haired, blue-eyed, ginger-bearded, translucent-skinned Irish American. After 6 months of teaching, I left the village for a week or two of summer vacation. By the time I'd returned, a rumor had spread among the villagers that I was actually black. Dato told me that you are black. Okay, well, who told Dato that? He just said he heard it around. Alright, but look at me. How am I black? I don't know. They say that you are black, but you're lying about it. This went on for a month or two. Then a rumor started spreading about the Irishman in the next village over that he had gone on a bender in Tbilisi, blown all his money, and hiked some 150 miles home. So that took the heat off me for a while. I started in the kitchen, and every time I would walk in, someone would turn off the ceiling fan and everyone would be suspiciously quiet with their pots and pans. Turns out the boss convinced them that I was some super-duper secret soldier friend of his who had come back with shell shock. Ceiling fans reminded me of choppers, and loud noises will send me into a rage. It was hilarious because I'm the most laid-back, passive dude ever. I got straight tackle-hugged by the 300-pound guy who taught me how to fix Xerox copiers. He had heard one of his ex-students died, and he thought it was me, so when he saw me on the street, he was stoked. Pretty sweet, considering it was only a 2-week class. Was just recently. Apparently I quit my job and started a poster-making business. Definitely not the case and weirdly specific. When I was in high school, I made out with a girl who knew one of my best friends. I found out a few days later from my friend that the girl was telling people we had slept together and that I was apparently really good. We take those? When I was in high school, I burned my wrist while taking a pizza out of the oven, so I had to wear a bandage for a few days for it to heal. Some girl that was in my French class told people that I tried to end my life. She also asked me, "Did you end your life at one point?" Yes, I ended my life and I'm dead now. That's why I'm sitting here. Man, when I was in high school, there's this kid we'll call Micah. He was a straight up jerk all the time, but he never touched me. He always just used words. Liked to talk a lot of crap about me, as much as possible it seemed. He started rumors about me all the time, and the weird thing was, I never really understood why. Like, I never done anything to this dude. Anyway, in 10th grade, my mother, sister, and I went on vacation to Virginia, and we were gone for like a week. When I came back, everyone was keeping their distance and making weird faces at me when I walked by. My best friend came up to me and was like, "Micah told everyone your family all got body lice and you had to be out of school for a week while you were getting rid of it." I tried to shake it off and not worry about it, but it was really freaking bothering me. That day after school, I was waiting on my ride and Micah was also waiting on his ride. So I confronted him in front of like 15 other people and asked him why he was always talking crap and spreading lies. He tried to act tough a couple of times, but I wouldn't back down and told him, basically, in so many words, that this was going to be a fight and that we were past the point of talking. And that little coward ran from me. And so, a new rumor got started that Micah was a coward, only that rumor was true. And then he later got kicked out of school for selling pills to people, so I feel like everything worked out in the end. That I was in a drugs gang and moved away from a city because of rival gangs. I moved from London out to the countryside when I was 14 to 15 because my family hated the city. Just before we moved, one of my close friends was murdered by a gang that thought he was somebody else. He was completely innocent. It was just a case of mistaken identity. There's a picture online of him, me, and a few other friends. Someone in my new school saw this picture and assumed because my friends were all tough-looking black guys that they must have been in a gang, and I was friends with a guy that just got murdered in gang-related activity. People thought I was awesome, and so many of the popular kids wanted to be my friend because they thought I dealt white powder. The funniest interaction was a guy who shouted something at me, and I just told him to screw off and walked away. He's twice my size and could easily kick my butt, and starts wanting to fight, but his friends quickly step in and say how he should be scared because I know people that would mess him up. All of this wore off once they actually spoke to me and realized I was just another nerdy kid that happened to be friends with tough-looking people, one of which was murdered. Basically, people from the countryside were scared of black people and anyone that is friends with them. That I was gay. Somehow, they knew before I knew. I saw in an online forum thread that apparently I've taken up pizza baking as my new career. When the moon hits your eye like when you press subscribe, that's amore. And subscribe to Am I the Jerk too. Link in the description. This week, she's sleeping with the boss. We saw them share a bottle of wine after work. What an unfaithful woman. The guy's married with kids. The following week, she's a lesbian. During the party, she was hugging the girls while singing karaoke. Make up your mind! I can't be sleeping with my boss who's male if I'm a bloody lesbian, you twats! When I was in high school, for reasons unknown, I guess it went around that I was gonna bring a bomb into school. With this rumor going around, a lot of kids avoided me and often talked about me behind my back. Now, I found this situation hilarious and petty, so I decided to start pushing it along. I started carrying my lunch in a small wooden box that I carried around with the rest of my stuff that I would keep underneath my desk. When asked by other students what it was, I would reply along the lines of, "It's not your problem," or, "You'll find out eventually." Eventually, this drew a lot of attention, and a couple days later, the principal called me into his office, stating that I was causing a mass panic, that he called my mother and that he needed to see what was in the box when she arrived. Alas, it was only my lunch, and I played dumb to the rumors, and my mother was angry that she came all the way here just to see what I packed for lunch. Great times. When I was 13, I was dating a 17-year-old cheerleader. A kid saw me going into her house a couple times a week and sometimes in the yard together. Truth, our moms were friends, and my mom hired the cheerleader to tutor me because I know math goodly. That I was dating an older woman for cash. It was in my last year in high school. I started to work out and wear clothes that fitted me better, and somehow people concluded that my transformation from ugly duck to not-so-ugly swan had something to do with an older woman paying me for intercourse. More than one teacher tried to help me to, quote, get out of this life. God bless them. When I was 16, they had just put up goalposts in our local park. Me and a couple of friends were playing a game where you take 3 steps in the 6-yard box and then jump and grab onto the crossbar. It was too easy, so I decided to try and make it with just 2 steps. I ended up just getting my fingertips onto the crossbar, falling hard on my back, and pretty much snapping both my forearm bones in my right arm. I had to spend the night in hospital and missed a day of school. When I came back with my arm in a cast, these are just some of the reasons my friends had told people I'd been off. Toby, a boy in year 7 at our school who was a legit giant, must have been at least 6 foot at 12 years old, mugged me for my Aerobie Pro, shouted, "Toby smash!" and broke my arm. A huge dog knocked me down. I got hit by a car. I got hit by a car trying to get my Frisbee back from Toby. They pretty much changed the story for every person they told. We all got a good laugh out of it. Because I skateboard, I must love rough intercourse. I mean, I do love rough intercourse, but it's not because I skateboard? How are the two even remotely related? Visited Samoa in 2009 while a tsunami hit. A friend back home spread a rumor throughout our school that I was swept by the wave and broke both of my legs and almost died. Supposedly, 2 people cried for me. I returned to college at 30 after breaking up with my boyfriend and moving in with my sister. I made new friends, and most of them were couples, probably because my new friends were in their 30s and 40s. Lots of times, folks were having barbecues or dinners at their houses, and I was catching rides to get there with random sets of friends because the car I purchased with cash was a hoopty. Sometimes I stayed over at people's houses because I had to get up for school in the morning and their house was closer. Whoever picked me up that week was obviously the couple I was currently sleeping with. That rumor went around for 3 years before I figured it out. I used to work in a secondary school. The rumor with the kids was that over the summer holidays, I left to fight The Undertaker. I didn't put them straight on that one. Sports day in school. Girlfriend's best friend told literally everyone that would listen that when I sat down on the bench after my race, she could see my dink in the gap between my shorts and my leg and that it hung down by the side of my leg. To quote her, "He's hung like a horse." I'm really not, but I was grateful for the amount of female attention I received after that. When I was first starting out in the workforce, my boss liked to give me all the fire drills to figure out the solution to. One day, he yells over to me, "Noob, I hope you have your fire hat and suspenders on. This is a big one." Smart jerk me replies, "No, but I have a big hose." A woman in her 40s looked at me for a second, then fell on the floor laughing. The rest of my tenure at that company, I would occasionally hear folks talking about my big hose. True story. I had a, quote, screw buddy years back in Austin, Texas. We will call her Hooks. She was 100% liberated sexually. We would have all kinds of intercourse, usually late night after my long shift and after she was done riding bikes with friends. I would insist on rinsing myself off and she would usually do the same. We would have all kinds of intercourse, often exhausting, so afterwards I would cook, usually some kind of sandwich, grilled PB&Js with molasses, turkey bacon BLTs, and grilled blue cheeses, to name a few. She was a member of a local punk cycling family, is the best way to describe it. I sold drugs around town, mostly weed and hallucinogens for my bicycle coincidentally. As we got closer, I became part of her social circle. Of course, she introduced me as, quote, the guy I am screwing who has that dank weed. On my own social accord, notwithstanding my narcotics, I became a valuable and reputable member of the gang. Well, our time together was short-lived. When the leader of the gang became single, she and him became exclusive. She informed me of this decision after the last time we had intercourse. So, here I am. I gained a wonderful group of friends, but lost my most functional screw buddy ever. After a party, I was drunk and lonely, so I headed home to pleasure myself and go to sleep. As I am leaving, I see a female who was at the party waiting by the curb of the driveway, and as I passed her to ride towards my house, she joins me. She's going that way anyway. She keeps talking about how she has no weed at home and all she wants is to get high before she goes to bed, so I offered to sell her some weed. When she gets to my house, I go to my kitchen to process her order and she goes to the bathroom, but I hear my shower running. She's taking a shower. She comes out of the shower soaking wet and I hope you know the rest. An hour or so later, she asks me what kind of sandwich I'm going to make. I gave her the most puzzled look. She says this, "Hooks is always talking about you. He likes them dirty but clean. Good weed, good dink, and he makes after-intercourse sandwiches." That I was a real Indian witch. That's when I learned if you have a lot of black clothes in your closet and are fairly good-looking and happen to be private about your life, no public social media accounts, rest assured you're a witch. That I'm a pimp when not in work. According to the rumor, as soon as I leave the building, I go around the corner, where there's a Ferrari, my enforcers, and a couple of my girls waiting with my pimp coat, hat, and cane. Somebody up there likes me. Heard that one numerous times from the nuns when I was a janitor at a parochial school. I thought they meant the priest was going to promote me to head custodian. Nope, they were just talking about God. Apparently was dating 6 different coworkers in 2 months of work, all at separate times. In reality, I was one of the few guys at said job capable of talking to and getting along with whoever I worked with. I have a bunch of female friends that said they thought I was a womanizer upon meeting me. Couldn't be farther from the truth, really. That I'm dating my former French teacher from high school. He was my Latin teacher. This is actually an amazing story, well worth the read, and I only heard it a couple days ago, so it's weird that I've just seen this thread. So I'm talking to this girl who I went to primary school with. I haven't seen or spoke to her in 10 or so years, but we found each other recently over social media. Call her B. It's worth mentioning I was born in Africa, then moved to the UK where I grew up. B told me a couple days ago that there was a rumor at primary school that I once got chased by a rhino. I was mixed race in a predominantly white school, so there was loads of excitement when I got there, but I never heard rumors. I find this hilarious, because I'm fast, but obviously I can't outrun a freaking rhino, so I go and tell my mom. Mom looks at me and laughs. She says, "You didn't get chased by a rhino as a child, but I did." Then she tells me this story of when she was a little girl living in the bush in Tanzania. Her dad, my granddad, was a station master. There was only one train track and one train passed a day. She was playing and then she heard screams. Men came running by, shouting, "Rhino, run!" So Mom starts running and everyone splits. The rhino is confused and switching targets. Then she remembers her dad telling her, large animals are afraid of anything larger, faster, and that makes more noise, like a train. So she runs over to the tracks near her dad's station as fast as she can and crosses them, then turns to look behind her. The rhino is snorting and stamping its hooves and kicking up dust on the other side of the tracks, but it won't cross. She escaped near certain death. I never heard this story before 2 days ago, because I never heard the rumor about me being chased by a rhino. It's likely that years and years ago, my mom tried to tell someone in my primary school her story, and either due to English being her second language, someone misunderstood her and thought she was talking about me, or some kid overheard and bent the truth. But yeah, that's the best rumor I've heard about myself, which actually turned out to be the truth and not about me at all. My mom is a genius. If she panicked and didn't think of the tracks, no one would be alive to tell the tale. She also has loads of other stories of dangerous animal encounters from when she grew up that she told me after. Moral here, guys, is to talk to your parents more. I had no idea my mom was so freaking awesome. Slipped in some mud next to a busy road on my way to school and was so weighed down with bags I couldn't get up. Plus, my hand really hurt, which later turned out to be torn ligaments. Driver passing pulled over, instantly thought I had been hit by a car, so rang an ambulance despite my protests. Meanwhile, the school bus went by, and thanks to teenagers with wild imaginations, by the time I got back to school a couple of hours later, I had been hit by an ambulance, broken every bone in my body, and died. Someone even said, "We thought you were dead," when I walked into class. There was a rumor when I was in middle school about me being Jewish. It circulated for a long time, but didn't cause me any harm, really. I did have many people over the course of a few months ask me, though. The strange part is that this was in a Catholic school I went to for 2 years prior. Really not interesting, but my husband's dad's, for the past several years my husband's, company is based in a small town, and there are always rumors around that we're either selling or going bust. We have been around for around 60 years and are still the biggest of our industry in our town, while expanding into other areas. When a former employee turned competitor, we prefer to work alongside our competitors rather than hurt them. started spreading the rumor that my husband was sleeping with the staff, I was ready to go postal and said former employee. Husband said, quote, "They've been trying for 60 years to bring us down. This isn't going to work either." And he's right. We're more successful than ever. TLDR, be graceful and hold your head up in business. Competitors will show their true colors. When I was in high school, I moved from Los Angeles to Columbus, Georgia, and switched high schools between junior and senior year there. Already being from California and talking funny, people kind of stayed away from me. When I switched schools in Columbus, I went from a mostly white school to a mostly black school. I'm black. But I didn't fall right into the sagging pants and lunchtime rap battles. I sat by myself a lot at lunch and liked to read my assignments and do homework at lunch so that I had more free time when I got home. Well, I found out towards the end of the year that because I listened more than I talked and often sat by and people watched, people judged, that everyone thought I was an undercover cop and was there to spy on the kids. And I'm not ashamed to say that I let them believe that until the rest of the school year. That I have killed a man twice. No, not two different men, but I heard at two different times in my life, two different versions of how I killed the same man at two completely different times for two completely different reasons. Stopped by a casual friend's house to see if he was around. Realized after I'd already rung the bell that I had a lit cigarette in my hand. Was 16 at the time. Was about to flick it away when his mom answered, so I quickly flipped it around my fingers, so my hand was sort of covering it, and tried to keep it behind my back. It was a breezy day, but she must have seen the smoke, and because she already didn't like me too much, she made the worst possible assumption, that I was holding a lit joint behind my back. Told her son I came over with the joint, and he then spread the falsehood to all sorts of other people at school. At that point, I hadn't even tried weed yet. I think that was the following summer. Just one in a long series of misunderstandings from my childhood. I was awkward, nerdy, and socially bereft, and people wonder why I never go to the reunions. When I was in college, I used to solve all the lab assignments in advance for a particular course and post the tutorials online in a forum accessible only by students, and not faculty members. The course and the lab assignments were extremely difficult, but I loved it, so I had no problem sharing the work I've done. The forum was anonymous, and you would use a nickname to post. Then one day, a friend of mine calls me and tells me he overheard two students talking on the bus. No, believe me, blank is not a student. It's an alias used by course teaching assistant to share lab solutions with us. Otherwise, nobody would solve them. It also catches those who copy-paste it. Fun fact, the course assistant later figured out that I was the one writing the tutorials and did nothing. The same lab assignments were used for the next 6 years.
Parents, what is the most shocking thing you've heard, witnessed, or experienced upon meeting your child's new boyfriend or girlfriend? He recounted the story of when he drove home so drunk he lost a tire hitting something, then drove on the rim for at least 4 miles down the interstate. Thankfully, he's sober now, but is that something you want to talk about first time you meet me? Ex-girlfriend's mom greeted me with, "Did you convince my daughter to go on birth control so you could do her?" I was shocked to say the least because we had only been dating for a few weeks and she was a virgin. I wasn't pushing the issue because I really liked her. In my confused state, the GF at the time explained to me that she told her mom she wanted to do it with me and needed birth control. First encounter with her mom, and I never recovered from that. She hated me. A quote from my dad. "I didn't expect her to be black. Nothing negative, both my parents just didn't see it coming. When I was 16, I met this girl who went to high school across town through a buddy who was dating her friend. Our parents were pretty liberal and we spent most of our weekends getting high and drunk in the pool house and swimming when we wanted to cool off. Needless to say, it took about 3 days before I lost my V-card to this girl, and it was the awesomest. Here's the thing, when you're 16 and you find a girl who is DTF, you never let that go. I was immediately her boyfriend, despite the fact that I didn't know that much about her. I knew everything that I needed to know. She had a female port and she let me put my male port in it. Week 2 of this torrid romance, and something isn't quite right in the land down under. It was really burning when I took a wee, like every time. I went to Catholic school, so I knew all about how Satan invades extramarital SX and fills your lust pole with STDs. I knew I had one. The only question was which one. A lot of people asked, wait, this girl gave you an STD? You dumped her, right? Let me refer to the previous statement. I was 16 and she was letting me do it with her. We only got more serious, like getting close to meet the parents serious, but love didn't cure whatever evil was festering in my pants, and I had to schedule a doctor's appointment. In the exam room, I had to fess up to my doctor, who I'd always suspected of secretly being gay. My terrible suspicions that I had third-degree wee-wee rot with a chance of AIDS. I had to pee in a cup and he manually examined my no-no area. He asked me why I suspected I had caught an STD, and in the spirit of doctor-patient confidentiality, I told him everything, which came out to, I met a random girl from across town and I've been doing it with her everywhere. Pools, bushes, suburbans, rugs, carpet, dirt piles. I don't know much about her, but if she's willing to do it with me, she's probably kind of a lady of the night. It took me a week, but the results came back. I had a benign UTI, most likely from bareback riding in dirt piles. Clean it up was his advice. That was the giant relief, and a big F you to Sister Helen, who had convinced me that God punishes all fornicators with a lifelong curse of phallic fire. Everything seemed to be great. The down under problems cleared up, and this girl and I kept seeing each other. After a few months, she invited me to her family dinner. Her mom was nice and pretty hot. Her dad was my doctor. I could leave it there just because I think the story ends where it should, but for those who want some Animal House style wrap-ups, here it is. All in all, it was super awkward because it took me a while, months, to believe that he wasn't just watching for the right time to confront me about it. I couldn't look him in the eyes, and I couldn't look her mom in the eyes because I was staring at her chest, convinced that he had told her. But it turned out that her dad was super cool. He never even mentioned anything other than telling me that I should start seeing a different doctor. He let me drive his super nice car, and they took me on family vacations. They even let me sleep over in the same room as their daughter. As for the girl, we dated through most of high school. She was a year younger than me, so we broke it off when I went to college. She actually went to the same college that I did, and we got back together for a little while, but it didn't work out. I implied she was a woman of loose morals, but I would like to rescind that comment. I'll admit, once I read the bit where it's like my doctor was her father, I didn't believe it. I mean, this latter bit, it helps kind of like, cement and pull it together a little bit, but I'm still like on the fence about whether this is just a work of fiction. First time my mother met my high school girlfriend was walking into my bedroom with my girlfriend completely naked on the bed and me fully clothed on the computer. Nothing out of the ordinary here. I was the girlfriend in question. I'd come over to my long-distance relationship boyfriend's apartment on the way out of town. I had dressed in a plaid skirt, fishnets, combat boots, and a low-cut black tank because I wanted to leave him with a good memory. Things are getting saucy, downright dirty even, when suddenly his dad comes in. He'd come by early to take him to lunch and drop him at his job. I was absolutely mortified during the entire lunch with his dad, dad's girlfriend, and my boyfriend. I never thought I would strike a teenager until I saw a boy smack my daughter's butt in front of me with impunity. And I think any man or father would agree that you had every right to do so. My boyfriend in high school was a senior at a different school. I was a sophomore. At their school homecoming game, it was a tradition for all seniors to dress up in camouflage. So my mom first met him when he was dressed head to toe in black and white camouflage and wasn't aware of the tradition. As he was walking towards us, she said, "Oh, God, no," and didn't realize I'd heard her. To be fair, he was pure scum. As if coming out to my parents wasn't already shocking news, I told them a year later that I'm dating someone who's only a couple of years younger than my parents, and that I'm only interested in dating men far older than my age. We've been together for almost 5 years, married just 2 months ago, and my parents are now very accepting of us both. Strangely, they were more bummed out about me being gay than our age difference. Let's see, this goes back to 2007. First time my now ex-wife and I had met in person. Long-distance relationships are less socially stigmatic now than they were 7 years ago, but 5 years together, 2 of them married, were too much, and so she's my ex-wife. So we're sitting in a hotel watching an excellent post-coital episode of Burn Notice. Great frickin' show, yeah? Of course. When her phone rings, she picks it up, it's her mom. She says some things I really didn't understand at the moment because they seemed like gibberish, and they sighed and handed the phone to me, and this is the first thing I've ever heard this woman say, "Do you have a gun pointed at my daughter?" I fell over laughing. She'd worked out a code with her mom some years before when she left to go to college to have something like a safe word so that her mom could call the cops and save her. I actually think that's a great idea for people who have that kind of lifeline. That is a great idea, but imagine if that person is just not on point, doesn't remember the phrase or like what the topic is that you're supposed to say if you're in trouble, and they're just like, Okay, why are you talking about this stuff? What? That'd be awkward to say the least. I'm way too late to the game here, but that's all right. My grandfather graduated high school at 14 and started med school at 16. When he went on his first date with my grandmother while he was 16 and my grandmother was 14, he had to wait downstairs with her father as she finished getting ready. So my great-grandfather starts asking him all sorts of questions. Mainly, what does he do with his time? So my grandpa gives him the rundown. Well, I'm 16, I'm captain of the basketball team, and I'm in med school right now, sir. My great-grandfather told him that he wouldn't have his 14-year-old daughter date a liar since there was no way he was 16 and in med school and the captain of the basketball team. He thought he was either lying about his age or lying about being in med school to impress him, so he kicked my grandpa out. My grandpa's mom had to call my grandma's dad to verify his story before my great-grandfather would let him come back to the house to take my grandma. Not me, but my oldest sister, then 19, asked if she could bring her boyfriend of a few months to my dad's 45th birthday meal. They said yes, and we were all excited to meet him. They were both over 30 minutes late, and the guy turned out to be a kid my dad was neighbors with and used to play with as a child. He spent the rest of the meal making jokes about how they knew each other as kids, and now he was boning his kid, and that they'd know the entire time about the connection and not bothered to give us any prior warning because they thought it would be funnier for my dad to find out this way. No idea how my dad managed to keep his cool. Some people just have zero class whatsoever. Not really on topic, but this is one for the parents who make snap judgments about kids' choices of who they date. This all started when I was 18. I'm now 30. I just graduated EMT training and was out with some friends celebrating, and this beautiful girl that had been in the nursing program at our school started chatting me up. I had spoken to her a few times at school, mostly hi, how are you, etc. Well, we ended up going on a few dates, mostly just dinners and movies, the usual, and she asks if I want to come with her to her family cookout. Well, obviously, I said sure, why not, and went to meet her family. I'll pause here to add that at the time I was 329 pounds, so not a small guy, and I'm 6'5". However, I had also lost almost 100 pounds before going to school with her, which she did not know at this point. I fought a thyroid disorder all through middle and high school and worked my butt off to get my weight under control and find the right medication so I wasn't just a fat lazy bum as some might call me. I knew from some of our conversations that this girl was really into physical fitness and the like. I told her that I was going to the gym and trying to lose at least 100 pounds, and she seemed encouraging and offered to even go with me. Well, the weekend cookout comes along and I meet the parents. We get there and everyone's outside cooking out and enjoying the pool, etc. I've never had body image issues or problems with my man boobs, so I take off my shirt and join in after meeting the parents and having what I thought was a good first talk. I notice while I'm sitting talking to one of her relatives, I think it was her uncle, that she's giving me these weird looks. Well, about an hour later I ask someone where the bathroom is, and when walking in the house to find it, I overhear this girl and her father talking in the kitchen. I'm not usually one to spy on someone, but I couldn't help myself. I figured the dad was telling her I wasn't good for her or something. I was right on both accounts. What I heard was, I didn't spend my life working hard and sending you to private school and buying you anything you desired so you could end up with some fat slob piece of crap like that out there. He has zero respect for himself. How can you expect him to respect you? Well, I was a little annoyed at this point, so I figured I'd back out and leave and call her later and see how she wanted to handle this, if we needed to call it quits or what. Before I could turn around though, I hear her reply, I only brought him home to make you and mom mad. I find him disgusting, but it's worth it to let you know you can't tell me what to do. Yeah, at this point, I'm really angry. Upon hearing this, I walk into the kitchen and let my feelings be known. I informed her dad that yes, I'm fat, but that I was 430 pounds just a year and a half ago and still losing weight, and sorry I wasn't born with perfect genes that made me fit and perfect in his eyes. But as he stated, he worked hard to provide for his daughter. I worked damn hard to overcome my challenges and will continue to work on them. After that, I turned to the daughter and said I was glad I could be her token fat guy for the day, and if she'd pack me a few racks of ribs, I'd take my fat, happy butt home. Fast forward about 12 years and I had gone back to school and graduated with my paramedic certs. I'm at this time about 230 pounds. I'm still a big dude, but a lot of it's muscle now, and I just have a large frame to begin with. Well, I was on the ambulance and received a call for a patient in cardiac arrest. Went en route, hit the lights, and hauled butt to the call. Upon arriving to the scene, we are directed to the patient, and I honestly stopped dead in my tracks as I came round the corner and realized the patient was the girl's dad. After about a 2-second, well, doesn't life work in mysterious ways, pause, I immediately began intubating him, and my partner got got our monitor set up while a fire crew member takes over compression. We work him for about 3 or so minutes on scene and decide to move him to the truck. Once loaded and en route to the ER, I continued working on him in the box. After about another 4 minutes, I finally got a shockable rhythm and proceed to try and jumpstart his heart. Takes about 4 rounds, but finally get his heart in a normal sinus rhythm and get him to the ER. I turned him over to the docs and went back in service, just thinking about how much of a female dog karma was that Mr. Fit had a heart attack when I was the fat slob piece of crap, and how ironic it was that I'd be the one to respond to that call. Well, about a week later, I get a call from the hospital that a patient I brought in wants to thank me. After learning it was this gentleman, and he donates a large sum of money to the hospital, and getting the PR speech from the suits at the hospital, I'm thinking this is going to end bad. I made my way over to the hospital after a shift, and when I got to his room, I realized when I walk in he has zero memory of me. Not surprising since it was so long ago, but I have also changed a lot physically. He thanks me, I do the usual, it's just my job speech, etc. Well, I was thinking, cool, got past this, no drama, it's over, all good, not so fast. He proceeds to tell me it's frustrating that even guys like us in good physical shape that take care of themselves can still have heart attacks while there's people out there that eat anything they want, weigh God knows what, and still walk around with luck. That really ticked me off, but I held it for a while and said, yeah, but that's just the way life is, and try to work my way out of there. Just as I'm about to cut and run, it hits me. What can I say without being a total butt and really ticking off the doctors outside? As I'm walking out, I tell him, glad I could help him out, and it's not bad work for a guy who used to be a fat slob piece of crap. I turned around and walked out, but I noticed that little light of recognition in his eyes as I left. That was about 6 months ago, and I've received several messages from him since then wanting to meet and talk, but I've ignored them, as I really have no desire to hear what he has to say. At best, it's an apology for how he acted back then. At worst, he'll try and take me to task for being a butt to him, and I'm good without it either way. Moral, I guess, is always treat others how you want to be treated, as someday you may need them, or something like that. Words to live by, but you also can't hold on to crap that people have said to you over the years, because yeah, while it might be good when, if maybe you do get revenge or an opportunity to prove yourself to that person and show them that they were wrong about you, sure, that's good. But if you let it fester and you're thinking on these things that happened like years and years ago, like all the time, it can twist you up inside, no joke. My ex-boyfriend dropped a bag of booger sugar on the floor. He told my dad it was sugar because he was diabetic. My dad promptly told him to leave and never come back. That was the nice way I put it. He was not that nice. My mom didn't say a word, not the best time to say, "But daddy, I love him," on my part, and then he asked me if I was on the booger sugar too. Not a parent, but my girlfriend met my mother last year for the first time. After my mother had a long discussion with us about the seriousness of texting and driving due to some news program she watched, my mom just drops the serious talk and starts casual conversation with her. First thing she asks is, "Do you have any siblings?" To which my girlfriend responded, "I had a sister, but she died in a car crash." Now, this was a complete joke, but my mom is not the humorous type. I literally cringed so hard. Not gonna lie, sounds like your girlfriend had a pretty good sense of humor. Started seeing who is now my ex-wife when after about a month and a half of dating, we got pregnant with our daughter. Met her and her parents at a restaurant for dinner to tell them that she was pregnant and what our plans would be going forward. Her father looks at me and the first thing he said was, "Darling 74, why did you have sex with my daughter?" Mind you, she was 21 at the time and I was 24. After a few seconds, I replied, "She took off her shirt and asked me if I was going to do her or not." So I did, followed by me immediately getting up and walking right out of the restaurant. Me, my ex-girlfriend, and her sister's friend were sitting outside on the back step getting ready to smoke the devil's lettuce. Her dad had recently left for a couple of weeks, and before he left, he said to me, "Don't do anything that you wouldn't do if I was around," and told him I would behave. Anyways, we're outside and her mom was at work, or so we thought. So I take the bowl and smoke, and her sister's friend goes, "Ah, crap." I turn around and there is my ex's mom staring at me with eyes of fury. As a punishment, she made me and my ex-girlfriend watch Pinocchio, and she grounded her for like a month. Anyone else heard that Snoop Dogg's apparently quit smoking the devil's lettuce? I'm waiting for that to be some kind of like campaign for some new product or something that he's making, I don't know. During my angsty phase, I brought home a guy with a safety pin through his eyebrow and a foot-tall blue mohawk. Within 5 minutes of entering my household, he managed to insult my mother's interior decorating skills and shoot my little sister in the eye point blank with a Nerf gun. We left before he could even meet my father, father, who would surely have ended up in prison for whatever he did to the dude. Happened to a uni mate. He went to pick up his girlfriend from the parents. They had been dating for a few weeks, and this was their first time meeting. Her house was on a reasonable hill, and while parking, he rolled back into the dad's car. So in his first few sentences to the parents, he had to explain that he had damaged their car, apologize, and then convince them to let their daughter get in his car to go to a movie. They let her go, and it became a running joke with the family. My family is very chill. Poop is discussed while eating and such. With this in mind, my 16-year-old brother brought home a fairly good-looking girl, tall, smiled a lot, outgoing, older. One of the first conversations we all have together after they go to his room to fool around is how they met 2 days before off of Tinder and only got together so that they could fool around for the summer before she left for college. Then proceeded to ask my mom to provide her with birth control as her mother would not. That happened. Talk about inappropriate dinner conversation. Also, there is a startling amount of people that aren't parents like talking about this stuff. It's all just kids talking about how their dates disappointed their parents. In my early 20s, after getting kicked out of college, I lived with my parents. The way their house is set up is a big staircase down, basically, in the middle of the house, which is almost completely open. There are no hallways in the house. Anyways, at the bottom of the staircase is the kitchen with an opening from where the sink is. Well, my mom has some weird sixth sense when she knows I have a girl over, and it is never the same one. This would typically happen on weekends. My mom would be washing dishes and yelling my name, saying, "Come down for breakfast." Only problem is there's a random girl in my room. 90% of the time, the chick would freak the hell out and be like, "Holy crap, how am I going to get out of here without meeting this woman?" My mom doesn't care one bit. In fact, she invited them to join us for breakfast. Sometimes I'd walk the girl down and say, "Hey, this is blah, blah, blah," but sometimes I'd send them down by themselves and they'd just dart out of the front door. God damn, those moments were frickin' priceless. My 17-year-old daughter had been talking to a friend of a friend on Facebook. He was supposedly in the army, just finished basic, and was at a base in Texas. One Friday night, he showed up at our house. We live in Missouri. He flew in to surprise her. She was surprised. I was mad. Asked him how long he was in town, where he was trying to stay. The punk kid used all of his money to buy his one-way plane ticket and take a cab to our house. I ended up driving this kid back to the airport, buying a plane ticket for him, and sending him back on his merry way. Turns out, he thought he would just not go back to his base and live at our house until my daughter finished high school. Yeah, not happening. She is 25 now, and we were just laughing about this last week when she and her husband were having dinner with us. That was one crazy, scary guy.
Yeah, I gotta hard agree there. That sounds like a kind of terrifying event to happen in your life, some random dude showing up. Especially some weirdo that's just been casually chatting with your daughter for I don't know how many months.
My girlfriend, now wife, met my parents for the first time at my dad's surprise 60th. In her nervousness, she proceeds to get plastered and is repeatedly shushed by my mother during speeches for laughing too loud and long with my mom's friends. The next morning, she's hating life as she comes downstairs for breakfast. My older brother, who has the maturity of a 13-year-old boy, sees her in distress and proceeds to wave a platter of eggs and bacon under her nose. As she bolts for the bathroom, my mom, who has a long career in addiction fields, pulls me into the hallway and asks me, "Does she do this a lot?" A less than auspicious entry into my family. First time I met my ex's dad, we were sitting in front of the TV. Me, him, her, and her 2 younger sisters, and we were watching Hannah Montana. Just for the record, he turned to me and asked, "Are you sleeping with my daughter?" I replied awkwardly, I'm not sure, We totally were. Turned towards my ex and asked, Are we sleeping together?" She casually answered, not taking her eyes off of the TV, "Yes, Daddy, we're sleeping together." Direct. Confident, I presume. All good traits. What happened?
Reddit, what have your pets done that is worryingly smart? I have a 3-month-old pup who got dirt in her eye one day. The eye kept tearing up, and she held it partially shut for a few hours. During that time, I felt really bad for her and handed out a lot of treats. Since then, when I am eating, she begs by, winking that eye with a tiny whimper. Her wink is non-stop. If she's called by someone else in the home, she looks at them with perfect eyes. I get the quote, broken eye. Once she gets the goods, fully working eyes. She is a mix from a stray. My birds steal batteries out of electronics. Remotes, beard trimmers, fire alarms, you name it. They don't do anything with the batteries, just take them out and then laugh at me and dance when I find them. Conures are jerkwads, but I love them. We had a dachshund growing up, and he could tell when my mom was going to have a seizure. He would start circling her over and over while barking. Ironically, he ended up with epilepsy himself, but it didn't shorten his lifespan. They helped each other out. He lived 17 and a half years. I miss that dog. Edited to add, my mom had epilepsy since she was 15, unrelated to dog, which she got in her 30s. Our dog wasn't trained. He just did it. Every day when my brother and I pull in the driveway from school, we can see our dog on my brother's bed in the window above the garage, where he knows he isn't allowed to be. When we walk into the house, he is laying behind the living room couch and picks his head up and looks at us like he's been sleeping there all day. I had a yabby in my freshwater tank that is a genius. I one day watched him gather some food pellets into his cave, wait for the fish today, eat the rest, then a few minutes later, place them in front of the cave entrance, then attacked and ate a fish that came to eat the pellets. He stockpiled his meal to later bait an even better meal. That guy is in his own tank now. One of my dogs knows how to open door handles. The other one can't even figure out that he's not supposed to eat rocks. It's a mixed bag with my pets. When I get asked to do some things, I'll groan jokingly and do the thing anyway. Now, when I call my dog while she was sleeping, or if I accidentally nudge her at the foot of the bed, then she groans with attitude like I would. Kind of adorable, kind of freaky. My cats teamed up and got the tub of butter off the kitchen worktop, took it outside, removed the lid, and had an all-you-can-eat butter party. This is just delightful. I am enjoying every single one of these stories so far. They figured out that if they want the toy or bone the other has, to go to the front door and bark like a stranger is walking up to the house. When the other dog shows up to assist in barking, run to get the toy. It's not just clever, but dishonest in the worst kind of way. Growing up, I had a yard that was surrounded by fence, except at the entrance where the cars came in at the front. My dog knew she wasn't allowed to go outside the yard. When we called her and she was out gallivanting, she would go to the neighbor's yard in the back, hop the fence, and come back over, then strut around the backside to the front like, "Hey, I've been here the whole time." I only found out because one day I was walking around the house calling for her and caught her. Sneaky girl. Every morning for breakfast, I always eat fruit, and that weekend there was a farmer's market selling fruit for cheap, so I bought a ton. I couldn't fit them in the fridge, so I left a few bags on the side in the dining room, reachable distance. I kid you not, I woke up and was surprised to see an apple next to me. Over the next few days, my dog would get up in the morning, go in the bag, and get a fruit to put next to me on the bed. He proceeded to do this for the next 2 weeks until we ran out. I thought it was the cutest thing ever, but a part of me is like, holy crap. I would do the old trick when my cat yawns to stick my finger in his mouth. Don't know why I do it. I guess it's just funny to see his expression when, boom, suddenly, finger. So the other day he is sitting on my lap, and I yawn, he wakes up and does a stretch, perfectly putting his paw in my mouth, boom, suddenly paw. Still no idea if by accident or if planned. His smug expression afterwards made me lean towards the latter. One of my cats learned how to turn the internet off. I mean, he already realized everybody goes crazy when he goes behind the TV stand and messes up the wires. So when we're not paying enough attention to him, usually if we're on our phones or the computer, he just unplugs the router. I don't think he knows how much power he has. My dog knows my caller ID. I sometimes need to call home from my cell, and our home phone, quote, speaks the incoming call's caller ID. The only time my dog ever howls is when I call and the answering machine says my ID. She's done it when my mom is off somewhere else in the house and can't hear the phone ringing. She doesn't do it for any other phone call, even if I'm not home. I also tried calling while I'm still home to see if I can get her to howl, but she just looks at me like I'm an idiot. My dog also has 2 bowls, one for food and one for water. Whenever I give her some crushed ice to lick in the water bowl, she'll pick up chunks of the ice and put them in the food bowl instead. Apparently, solids equals food bowl, even if said solids turn into water. My dog understands Christmas. As in, he will sit where the tree goes throughout November. Once the tree is up, he'll lie beside it, crying. Once there are presents, he'll paw at them and carry them to us because he wants to open them. On Christmas, he starts trying to wake everyone up around 5 and begins howling around 7. And I kid you not, he will open his presents like a 5 or 6-year-old and excitedly run around with a toy or treat for a minute before looking for the next present. One year, we had less than 5 things for him to open, so he stole a present from me. If you've been enjoying these stories as much as I have, be sure to like and subscribe. You know the drill by now. Am I the Genius and Am I the Jerk? Linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and please give your pets a little kiss on the forehead for me. My cat figured out how to fill up my bathtub. He learned how to close the drain and would turn the water handle and would just sit there and watch the tub slowly fill up. It took me weeks to figure out what was going on. When my dad was having a difficult time in life, he moved into my apartment. He's really into sports and mostly deaf, so when he enthusiastically cheers for his beloved Detroit Tigers, he doesn't realize how loud he is. One early evening while I was asleep, because I work midnights, the Tigers scored or something and my dad loses his mind, which woke me and my cat up. I grumbled and closed my eyes, but my cat Mike was not having it. She walked into the living room, and all I hear is my dad go, "Oh, sorry, I'll be quiet." And then my cat walked back into my room, jumped back on the bed, and we both went back to sleep. Edit: I adopted Mike from the Humane Society when she was 3. She came with the name Micah. I didn't want to give her an identity crisis, so I just shortened it to Mike or Mikey. I had a cat that learned how to open the fridge, and then my dog started begging my cat for food, and then the cat started getting into the fridge just to feed the dog. I patiently await the day where my pets decide to overthrow me and have me fixed. I'm not fighting it. That'll only make it worse in the long run. We used to keep my childhood dog in the garage while we were at school. She once found an old garage door opener, figured out how it worked, and buried it in an old dead potted plant in the garage. When we left for the day, she would nose around in the dead plant till the door opened and go play with the neighbor's dog in their living room, because she also figured out how to open their sliding door and let herself in. Edit: finding out was actually just luck. I had a half day from school. She had been getting out pretty much every day, and we had no idea how the door was getting opened. I was walking up the driveway, the door opened, and I saw her coming from over in that direction. Her nose had dirt on it, and there was dirt on the ground. Wasn't too hard to piece together once this happened. One of my cats systematically tests for weaknesses in my door. He jingles my keys on the wall. He knows that noise gets that door to open. He's finally managed to unlock the deadbolt with his little paw. If that jerk could turn the doorknob, he'd be gone. My fat cat has devised an alarm system by laying on top of my foot or having his foot touch my foot whenever possible so that when I get up, if he is sleeping, he will wake up just in case I am going to feed him. Not as much smart, rather worryingly calculated. On Christmas Eve, I was wrapping the cat's favorite treats because I'm that person. The 3 boys weren't too fussed about this, but Amber, the princess, wanted the treats now. Of course, she's a cat and has no concept of Christmas, so I gave her one of her normal treats and put the presents away. She was not amused by this. Now, the thing about Amber is that she never came upstairs. She had tiny little legs that made the journey too long, so she commandeered the downstairs instead. But that night, I was woken up by weird cat chirping. I opened my eyes, and on the shelf eye level across from me was Amber. I was confused as to A, why she was upstairs, and B, how she got on my shelf. As I was thinking this, whilst maintaining eye contact, she stuck out a paw and swiped one action figure off the shelf. I didn't react at first, so she did another, and another. By the third, I realized what she was doing, and I said her name in shock, to which she hopped off the shelf and left my room like it was nothing. And that confirmed my suspicions that Amber held grudges and exacted revenge. My dog likes to sleep in the kitchen. Most nights I am up late on my desktop working, which is near the kitchen. When he gets annoyed at the light, he goes behind the curtain to make a blindfold that covers his eyes. It could take him a few tries to get it just right. Back when I was a kid, my family had an incredibly intelligent Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. She had somehow managed to learn several dozen different words, to the point where we could tell her to go find certain people, to wait for us in certain rooms, or to pick out specific items from her collection of about 15 different toys. This dog would even obey remarkably detailed commands combining those elements, like, go get your hedgehog, then bring it to Dad in his office. Suffice to say, she was a remarkable pet. Now, this dog's favorite toy was a little stuffed animal that was vaguely shaped like a human, which we referred to as her, quote, baby. She would wrestle with it, tote it around the house, and keep it right next to her whenever the family would gather to watch a movie or something. After a year or so of such adventures, though, the toy started to get a little bit worn out, so my mother decided to replace it. In an effort to, quote, surprise the dog, she discreetly put the old baby in the garbage, then stood in the middle of the living room with the new one behind her back. Coyote, my mother called. The dog's name was K-O-D, though we pronounced every letter. Coyote, come here! As expected, the dog came bounding into the room, a happy spring in her step. Where's your baby? Go get your baby! Everyone expected the dog to approach the corner where her toys were kept, discover the item was missing, then mount a search for it. She'd done similar things in the past after all, with hide and seek being one of the many games she seemingly enjoyed. But rather than behaving as anticipated, Coyote trotted over to the trash compactor and started pressing on its foot pedal with her paws. She wasn't heavy enough to get the thing open, but the intention was clear enough. In the end, Coyote wound up with 2 babies. TLDR, clever canine counters caper. I have 2 horses, Red and Mickey. They are yarded next to each other, and there was enough of a gap in the fence that a clever horse may work out that they can just manage to pinch the other's hay through it. Red took it a step further and realized that if he could steal Mickey's hay, Mickey could steal his. So he waits until Mickey is distracted by his bucket feed, and then Red takes his own hay from his own feeder and deposits it across the yard where it's safe. He then goes back and takes Mickey's hay and deposits it where it's safe. Then Red eats his hard feed and 2 lots of hay. We had to move all the hay feeders. My dog is afraid of the smoke alarm. After a while, he discovered the toaster could set the alarm off if toast burned, so he became scared of the toaster. Eventually, he figured out the noise the bread bag made as it preceded the toaster noise, so he became scared of that. Eventually, he figured out the kettle turning on usually accompanied the bread bag noise, so he became scared of that. Now we have just reached the point that he has figured out the time of day we go into the kitchen to turn on the kettle and open the bread bag, so he has scheduled his fear to that. I'm always blown away how he has been able to figure all this out. Not sure if it's really that smart, but it impresses me. Edit, to clarify, the smoke alarm has only actually gone off once or twice, but he remembers it well. We're also training him with treats to not be scared. He is also a Chihuahua cross, so being scared of noises is kinda his thing. Not current pet, but a dog I had as a teenager. Dog jumps up on the couch. Nope, you're not allowed on the couch. Go lie in your bed. Dog leaves the room. A moment later, he returns with his bed and throws it on the couch. Gets back up on the couch in his bed and stares at me. Fair enough. My cat learned to say my parakeet's name. Marmalade apparently isn't a difficult name to mimic in cat speak. Okay, you know I have to try it now. Okay, I'll stop now, I'm sorry. My dog has crapped on the floor and casually placed my husband's underwear over it, stolen the cat treats bag and hid it behind the entertainment center, has been the only dog to break out of his boarding kennel, find his own bag, and walk around the front waiting for a walk. He's a jerk, but such a sweet baby. My cat taught herself to fetch and hugs my arm for attention. She learned that when I tap twice on a surface, I want her there. She follows me around because I give her hugs and food. She also knows that she shouldn't go outside, she was a stray, and stays clear of accidentally opened doors now. During my teens, I had a cat and a dog. The dog door that led outside had a door that we would close and lock with a latch. The cat learned how to not only shut the door, but lock it as well. So, she started locking the dog outside when we went out. He was a cowardly dog, so really she just had to sit inside in front of the door and he'd be too nervous to come back in. Not so much worrying as it is somewhat annoying and funny, but my Golden will walk up to the Xbox, look at the Xbox button, boop it with his nose, and wait for the light to turn on and the chime to sound, and then just walk away all satisfied looking. For a couple months, I would come home from work and notice the Xbox was on, but no, I had turned it off. I accused my fiancé of leaving it on until one day I was in the next room and heard the chime. So I ran in, and he was walking away from it. Then he started to get flagrant about it and do it right in front of me, and eventually turned it off as I was playing it, and he wanted my attention. Goldens are a trip. We were looking after a friend's dog. We came home from work in the evening with a huge pile of dirt by the front door. The dog, unlike every other time we came home, was lying on the couch looking very guilty about something. You know the look. It took us forever to figure out where the dirt came from. We had an old flower pot downstairs on a shelf. The pot had been emptied by the front door, and the pot returned to the shelf like nothing had happened. Where to begin with this question? My pup knows that she's not allowed in the kitchen, so she assumes that the cat isn't allowed either. Of course, when he inevitably goes in there, she'll run over and either do a quiet bark or nudge my feet until I'll look at her, and she'll hurry me towards the kitchen to tattletale. Same goes when the cat is scratching on furniture he's not supposed to be or meowing. Can't think of anything else at the moment, but this definitely isn't the only example. My cat was displeased to be shut out of the bedroom when one of us was playing with the Oculus Rift. Goes to show how old this post is. You can't even get one of those now, they're discontinued. So she scaled the laundry rack to the top of the bathroom door, jumped from there to the roof window, ambled across the roof, and dropped down into the bedroom through the other open window. Then jumped on my husband's lap. He was rather surprised, as you can imagine. She was 6 months old at the time. My dogs are stupid idiots, so this may not exactly be worryingly smart, but one of my pups has successfully punked me a couple times when it comes to stealing my takeout food. He knows the rules and obeys them generally. He's no anarchist. But he's smart enough to bluff, like, when I'm chowing on my Indian takeout, he'll politely pace around avoiding eye contact, like humbling his butt to the rules he knows he is supposed to follow. Out of the blue, he'll snap into action and snag a dumpling and flee into the yard to feast on or bury that crap. He's learned that if he acts fishy, I'll keep my guard up, but if he acts like a good boy, I might slack some and trust him, so he'll throw down the bait and switch. When I lived with my parents, we had an enclosed garden for the cat. My dad would go out of town overnight. When he was away, he was outside a lot and didn't eat as many snacks between meals. He had a traveling bag that would be in his computer room when he was home. Our cat figured out that she can find out if he's home by checking if the bag is there. Then he was talking about the lack of snacks while the cat heard him. He also mentioned that he was leaving soon. Our cat proceeded to go out, catch a mouse, not kill it, and put it in his bag. I have rats. 6 boys in one cage, 4 girls in another, and a solo boy in his own separate cage. Solo boy has behavioral issues, so he can't be homed with anything but himself. I've tried everything, from getting him snipped to going ridiculously slow with introductions, nothing. He goes for the kill with everything, myself included. My partner was the one who found this out. Loki, the jerkwad in question, is able to open his cage door by putting all his weight on it, free-roaming our apartment to do God knows what, then just screws right back into his cage whenever he's done. You're probably asking how he closes the door, preventing us from noticing him escaping, right? Well, I had a chew toy on the door for him, and this smart jerk literally just pulls on the chew toy. I would have known he was getting out if it had not been for my partner waking up in the middle of the night to use the washroom. Smartest little jerkwad I've ever met. Screw you, Loki. I now know it's you who's been destroying my furniture and the reason why I won't get my damage deposit back. My dog, let's call her A, had a dog friend who was dumb as a brick. Let's call him B. When B's owners were out of town, he'd stay with us. He was a bit spoiled and had lots of bones and toys she never touched unless B wanted to have them. One day, when A was checking out who was cooking in the kitchen and if she could snag some food, B got a hold of one of her bones. B was a large dog, and once he had something, he wasn't giving it up. A was fairly big herself, but she didn't compare to B. So A comes out of the kitchen and realizes that B has her bone that she hasn't touched in months and is having none of it. She knows from past experiences that she can't just snag the bone away from B, so she grabs a tennis ball and sneaks up behind him and drops it on his head. B stares up at the ceiling for about 3 minutes trying to figure out what's happening, and A snags the bone and hides it. B looks down and sees that the bone is gone and then stares at the ceiling for another 5 minutes trying to figure out how it took his bone. Rest in peace, A. You were an amazing dog. I had a cat named Buddha, and I'd had him for about 3 years. I noticed that there was pee in the toilet, so I asked my boyfriend if he'd stop flushing or what. Then one day, we were both in the bathroom, and he said, "What is Buddha doing?" Buddha was on the toilet peeing into it. He must have learned from watching me. I never taught him. He only peed in there. No poop, but it was the funniest thing. I have a picture of it because no one believed me. God, I miss him.
Escape room employees, what was the weirdest escape tactic you've seen? I've learned not to make the final stage a lock with a key because damn if I haven't met some of the best lockpicks in the state. My family did an escape room and there was a room with a phone that connected to 3 other rooms. The door only opened when you dialed the right numbers on the phone, and so my sister just walked up and pressed redial and the last door opened. We have the record of 7.5 minutes to complete the room. My brother and I once got out of a room by taking a magnet from the previous puzzle and using it to lift a key out of a small opening in a lockbox. There were 6 of us and nobody could figure out the last clue, so we improvised. Got out with 3 minutes to spare. Pretty good. good, kid. I was told this by an employee. There were paper clips to unlock handcuffs. Someone stuck it into a functioning outlet. I don't think that guy was trying to speed run the escape room. Not an employee, but did a room with 2 friends where we got randomly placed with a family with 3 kids under the age of 12. The youngest was maybe 7. We were like, oh man, we're not going to get any help at all. Kids won't be able to solve anything, and their parents will have to keep track of them. But there was this one part where you had to solve a puzzle that would allow you to move a bookshelf on treads. There was a small gap through which you could see the key, but it was too small to get more than a few fingers through. Unless you're a small 7-year-old boy. He just popped his arm in there and grabbed the key. We bypassed a good 5 minutes of the room that way. Also, the kids ended up being delightful and pretty good at finding stuff. There was a group of people who were doing a space-themed escape room. In one of the rooms there was an astronaut suit, which was supposed to just serve as a prop, but one of the members thought that it might be needed to solve one of the rooms. So he ended up traversing through the entire escape room while wearing an astronaut suit. And no, it wasn't needed to solve anything. No joke, this is actually making me want to try an escape room. We had a room where you were supposed to translate this code into different words. We had a list of possible words, and then put them into a specific order. We weren't positive how to use the code translator. It was something with wheels, so instead we just used some common sense, like XCWWB is obviously going to be green, not purple. But the lock that was supposed to pop open when you got it right had already popped when we got in, so nothing happened. We asked for a clue and she made us use the actual code wheel because she assumed there was no way we could have gotten the words right without it. I worked at an escape room for about a year, but one group managed to always stay in my mind. It was a group of 4 women, maybe in their 50s, drunk out of their minds. They started off the room quite well with a pace that would allow them to escape, but then they encountered what we considered to be the easiest puzzle in the room. Basically, they get a long magnet and use it to pull a key out of a locked window. However, they, for some god-unknown reason, could not figure this out. After a bit of trying, they asked for a clue. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of, remember that magnet stick you guys got? Some might call it the key to success. Simultaneously, they all sigh, which is a common reaction when people realize that an answer to a puzzle was so simple, but no, they didn't understand the clue. Instead, they shoved the book into the window in hopes of getting the key, which is something we specifically tell them not to do. Had to end up pulling them from the room as they started ripping apart the books. At a certain point, I am just sat here wondering, how much worse could I be than some of these people at these escape rooms? Working at an escape room, I have a lot of stories, but this one will forever be my favorite. It happened a little over a year ago now. A guy was wearing a baseball cap when he went into the room, and shortly after took it off and placed it somewhere. About 7 to 10 minutes later, he picked it up and started searching it for clues or hidden messages. His wife needed to remind him that was his own hat, and it actually took some convincing. He really didn't believe her at first. I work at an escape room in Sweden, and we use live actors in our games. One time when one of my colleagues entered in character, a group of people decided to grab him and tickle him so that he would let them out, because they thought that was a great tactic. Worst part is that when they got out the normal way, they were very proud of their actions and thought they were really funny. I abhor being tickled, so much, so I have a lot of sympathy for that worker. I'd be so angry too, you're just trying to do your job and a bunch of people start tickling you. Surely there are rules and regulations to these things. It's hey, don't bother the actors that we have working at this place, please. Our rooms had a lot of decorative touches, lots of pretty knickknacks just to enhance the mood. One of our rooms had a Victorian parlor, smoking room feel, and on the mantle was a small statue of a bird of some sort. One gentleman decided to pick up and carry the eagle for about 45 minutes. But guys, this eagle has to be for something. He tried placing it on things, opening it, using it as a key. Thank goodness he didn't try to use it to bang something open. When the group finally escaped, he was at the door and quickly asked me, "What was the eagle for?" "Oh, nothing. It's just for a decoration." He had done absolutely nothing to help his group progress. So he walks over and sets the statue down and lets out a heavy sigh. He seemed absolutely crushed. Meanwhile, the rest of his group was partying and celebrating their success. I get that. That is the worry, that you go to one of these things with a bunch of friends and no matter what you do, how hard you try, you end up contributing nothing to the team. That would be awful. I feel for this dude. I have tons of stories about destructive players, so instead, how about a weird and actually intelligent method? After my brief and video, the players started to run around the room, all talking out loud, not necessarily talking to each other. I thought that there was no way they were going to escape with how disorganized they were. Boy, was I wrong. One of the group members shouts, "Pumpernickel," and everyone else shuts up immediately. They continued to play like this through the rest of the game. Whenever one of them had either found something interesting or figured out an answer, they would shout, "Pumpernickel," and immediately everyone else would give them their full attention. They got out in 30 minutes and 0 clues in a room with a 20% success rate, and average time to complete is 45 to 50 minutes. Definitely one of the better groups I've managed or seen. I worked on one where a roulette table was one of the answers. Now, we didn't want to rig a roulette wheel, so we gave the lock multiple answers. Now, this family comes through and plays it and gets double zeros, and they assume it's rigged to land on double zeros. Pretty common assumption. They spin it again, lands on double zeros again. I worked there for about a year, and I don't think I'll ever see something like that again. The family didn't make it out of the room, but they were extremely close. I had a friend who ran an escape room in an older house. She said she had a group that snuck in tools and disassembled the furniture looking for clues, namely a metal child's bed and rocker. She had another group that peeled off a layer of wallpaper and punched a hole through the drywall. I also went through with a friend who tore a stuffed animal in half to remove it from a locked box instead of finding the key. Hearing about these, I wish they would do crazy stuff like that, like, let's insert a key in a teddy bear or something like that. That'd be cool, I guess. I mean, you gotta consider that you can't go around breaking all this crap, right? An employee told us this story. The room we went to was part of an older building, and there was an unused fireplace. A previous lady had opened the chimney flue, letting a dead bird, among other things, into the room. This lady thought the dead bird was part of the escape, and the employees had to inform her that it wasn't. I've built 2 escape rooms which we ran at conferences and events, guaranteed occurrences. 1. Someone rips something apart due to overenthusiasm. 2. Someone rips something apart because they came in drunk. 3. The meekest, quietest person in the group figures a puzzle out 20 minutes before everyone else and nobody is listening to them. 4. The smartest people never figure anything out. Hot tip, if you're going to be in an escape room, pretend you're dumb as poop. We never require you know advanced chemistry or have an IT background. All the pieces are in the room. If your first few guesses on a puzzle aren't it, don't sit there beating your brain on it. Hand it to fresh eyes. 5. Someone does the opposite of what the warning label says. If it's shaped like a laser pointer and has a giant do not point at eyes, guess where it's immediately going. 6. Since we show at conferences and take over other spaces, we don't have 100% control of this space. We will hang black curtains over things or put a label on something that says not part of the puzzle, and people still, with almost every run through, find something new. Like there was a label on an AC vent high on the ceiling, and somebody spent half an hour going, what does it mean? 7. Someone figures a puzzle out that spells out a clue, notices the clue, then disassembles it and forgets it. This behavior I do not understand. We had one puzzle where people had to connect strings to a point on a grid, and when all the strings were up, it spelled a 3-letter word. Groups would do this, notice the word, comment on it, then take all the strings off the wall. Then 10 minutes later, be going, this lock needs 3 letters to open it, and I'm screaming from the security camera room. 8. I built a puzzle that has a 30-second timer. If you don't solve the whole thing in that time frame, it resets. Once you know what to do, it's just button pushing. It's easy, but holy Christ, having a short time limit stresses some people out like crazy. Like screaming, it's gonna reset, oh God, at their teammates. That's just people getting real into the game. I mean, hell, me and my mates yell at each other when we play Mario Kart. We curse each other's names, but pretty sure that's typical of a regular Mario Kart game. Emotions get pretty high. Work in an escape room and we have a prison scenario. Shocker, I know. Set in the 1960s in Germany. Made to look authentically old, there is an old rusty toilet, obviously without water. Via the cameras, I could only see the back of the dude appearing to investigate the water tank above the toilet, only he wasn't. You might already guess where we're heading. This dude thought it was perfectly appropriate to wee into a prop toilet in a confined space. With 3 friends present in the same room, I lost my crap and had to throw the group out. There was a drawer that would activate a black light when you pulled it open. Group was pretty dumb and clueless, gave them a hint. You'll find something useful if you open a certain drawer. Naturally, they find the drawer and someone decides that it would be useful to grab the light bulb and rip it out of its socket. Entire room blacked out cause they tripped the fuse. Needless to say, they did not escape. In a clown-themed escape room with my friends, we found a coin which we found out was used later on in the room. There was a hole in the floor with a note that said, "Do not put the coin in this hole." We thought it was a trick or something, so we put the coin in there, only for nothing to happen, and we couldn't get the coin out. With all the notes and warnings that employees apparently put around the place, or have to say because otherwise people trash the rooms apparently, this doesn't sound quite as fun as I imagined. Former employee here. We always reminded our guests to be gentle and respectful inside our games. That force of any kind is entirely unnecessary. People have ripped handcuffs from tables and walls, used incredible force to rip open maglocked doors, somehow used a key from their own keychain to unlock a cupboard that is not meant to be unlocked at all. There is a phone in one of the games that cannot make any outgoing calls except to 911. There is a note on the phone asking people not to call 911, and we reminded our guests not to call 911, but it constantly happened. It was rare when it happened, but some kind of parallel thinking that led them to getting the right answer without any of the clues. It's pretty alarming when a door opens and it required a clue in another locked box. In the escape room I work at, I once had a party of older 20-somethings come in during a day out. They didn't pay much attention. I think some of them might have been a bit drunk, but I'm not sure, but they worked at a pretty good pace. In the room they were doing, they had to find a crank, a gear, and a handle in order to open a mechanical box that had the answer to the mystery they were trying to solve. We weren't allowed to lock the door for safety reasons, so before they even step in the room, I gave them a whole spiel about the rules and whatnot, and told them that anything that looks like it needs more parts to work probably does, so please don't force things. This box clearly has a part for the gear, and a part for the crank to attach to said gear on the side of the box. After finding the gear and handle, but having not found the crank yet, one of the dudes in the room just attaches the gear and with sheer force of his grip turns it without the crank and opens the box. I was just staring at the monitor open-mouthed in awe. I haven't seen anything before or after that could possibly top that experience. They ended up deciding to continue the room and try to find the crank after I informed them what happened, and they'd technically solved the room and had a blast. This is our extended list at work, basically meaning that people have done this crap at our venue and now we have to brief everyone with this list. Ceiling tiles and sprinklers are not part of the game. Do not kick holes in our walls. We do not keep clues in the plaster. Do not pull apart our phone. It is there for clues from the staff. It is not a clue itself. Climbing on top of our shelving and jumping onto a lockbox to break it open is not how you solve a puzzle. Kicking doors down is not permitted in gameplay. You are not Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do not place metal items in the power outlets. They are live and will kill you. These are the types of people who look at us with surprise on their faces when we have to repeat they are liable for the damages they make. I'm starting to wonder if some of these contestants got confused between an escape room with a rage room, I think they're called. You can just go in there and break whatever's in there with whatever you like. It's supposed to be really good for an anger outlet. Last week, a woman ripped a very large painting out of the wall. It was clearly marked "Do Not Touch" and screwed into the wall with anchors. One part of our game requires you to look up information in a textbook. We give the page number to help solve a puzzle. I've had 2 groups now waste 5 to 10 minutes solving the practice problem instead. Didn't know you could pick combination locks until a guy did it. If there is any kind of lock anywhere in an escape room, I can guarantee someone has tried to pick it. Drunk people in particular get pretty creative, usually not in ways that are beneficial to them. At least once a week we have someone ask if they can just make their way through the drywall. I know it's a joke, but I always keep a closer eye on those people. But we have our customers lock up their belongings in lockers prior to entering the rooms. It's important to note that the lockers are not assigned per room. Any player can pick any locker. The other day I had a group open up a locker cabinet which has the means to escape in it within the first 2 minutes in the room, and escaped right away. When I asked them how they escaped, fearing that we forgot to lock it during the reset, they let me know that they used their locker key to open it. Needless to say, we got new locks for our lockers. God, my boyfriend works in an escape room, and they tell you at the beginning, if you have to use force, then it's not meant to move. Then people literally rip lights, bookshelves, clocks, skeletons that were drilled into the walls right off. I think they spend close to a few $1,000s a month repairing crap they told customers not to do. That sounds ludicrously frustrating if you were the business owner of that establishment. I had one team shut the magnetic secret door behind them, locking themselves in for no reason that was particularly dumb. In one of our rooms, there's an opening in the wall for a long tube that they're supposed to stick a magnet into and fish out a key. One team decided to drop the cryptex they were trying to open into it instead. That was fun to try and get out. One team of the two got to the end of the hour time limit without even solving the first puzzle. In another room, we have a mannequin hanging from a noose. My coworker watched one particular idiot put the noose around his own neck and climb onto the bench next to it. He got a real shouting at over the walkie-talkie for that moronic stunt. This job sounds like, I don't know, the second most infuriating jobs after maybe working in the stock market. A group came into this place and I went through everything. I was the only employee who was fluent in English, so I'd go through the rules. The rest of the staff are Russian and mostly speak Russian. Only one knows broken English, so she'd relay stuff to me if needed. Well, one day, as I said, this group came in. My boss and her friend, who were visiting, were discussing in high-speed Russian different parts of the escape room, how to get in and out and such. I assume no one can hear or understand them, so I go through the rules and such. I mention I'm also on a loudspeaker and such if they need help. The second they get in the first room, a guy goes, "You guys remember how I speak Russian? Want to set a record? I can hear you." Niet! Not necessarily an escape tactic, but when telling the group the rules and what to do, i.e. don't go in the ceiling, they almost always think you're just trying to misdirect them. Please do not, under any circumstances, mess with the fire detection and alarm system. Somehow translates to, there is definitely something hiding in the functioning smoke detector. They were not happy with the bill for the fire department getting called after they ripped it out of the ceiling. If I go to an escape room and ever do something this stupid, I'm probably going to come back on here and be like, well, I did it. I fell victim to my own stupidity and I paid for it. All of my judgments of other people in this specific topic were unfounded and, well, I was no better. There was one person who ripped the wires out of a pressure sensor, then stuck said wires into an electrical outlet, shorted out the room, and no, they did not get out. In his defense, he knew a lot about electricity. In high school, I used to work in an escape room for my co-op. I usually just watched cameras and swept up the room after everyone was done. In our medieval room, there is a ventilation hatch really high up on the ceiling. It's really out of sight, but if you're looking for it, you can find it. I've witnessed 6 full-grown guys form a human ladder to try and open the hatch with a bobby pin they found on the floor because they thought it was part of the room. I had to send in my colleague before any of them got hurt, though.
Hey guys, I've got an idea of how we can escape this medieval-themed escape room. See that modern-day ventilation shaft up there? I bet that's the way we get out.
Worked at an escape room while I was between jobs. We had a room that had a long vase glued to a table with a key at the bottom. There was a stick magnet located in the room, but one of the first things people usually found was the other magnets utilized in another part of the room. This person took off a shoe, completely pulled the laces out, and tied it to the small magnet to stick down the long vase. Creative, but completely unnecessary. Plus, then it was super confusing when they did eventually find the long magnet stick. I guess that's the issue with these things. People find stuff, get so excited that they found a clue or potential answer for how to get out of the place, and they want to use it immediately. So then they're like, wait a minute, but it doesn't quite work. Maybe they expect us to use our brains even more and think outside of the box. Like, I understand that. It's kind of like, I know, going on a tangent, but it's like when I first played Dark Souls. I went straight to the graveyard, tried to go all the way into the catacombs, was just like, this is the way I need to go. Of course it is, because the game's supposed to be super freaking hard. And then I took another look around and found the stairway to the Undead Burg, and it was way easier, and I was like, oh, well, now I just feel silly. You know, there's the expectation of what you know about something vaguely, and then there's the reality of the matter. Escape room employee here. I have witnessed a few of these, but most have been told to me by co-workers. Picking a lock with a girl's bobby pin. We provide a key. Thought they had played the room before and were cheating, prying a threaded bolt off the wall with their bare hands, shouting the answer into the camera, the game mic, or writing it on paper provided and blocking our camera with it, instead of, you know, doing the puzzle in real life. We cannot physically lock our rooms due to fire code, so people try to leave the room and come back with power tools we have in our lobby from room construction and maintenance. There's a 7 to 8 foot armoire in one room. We've had to get people off the top from it before, and this is again after telling them repeatedly that everything they need to interact with is eye level or lower. Writing on the clues we slide under the door and asking questions, and most stupidly, sticking metal objects into power outlets.
Time for a food sin episode. Subway workers of Reddit What's the grossest sandwich you've seen ordered/had to make? When I worked at Subway, there was a family that came in, the parents and their 2 sons. They would always order meatball footlongs and want all the veggies twice. You can never pack on enough lettuce either. You couldn't cut the dang thing. Good luck trying to smash it down enough to even wrap. That times 4 every time they came in, plus a ton of mayo. We used to do rock, paper, scissors in the back to see who had to deal with them. The guy had some kind of intellectual disability or something. He ordered a foot-long meatball sub with extra marinara and extra every other sauce, which at the time would have been yellow mustard, brown mustard, ranch, chipotle, light mayo, regular mayo, yes, both, and sweet onion. He had a companion with him who kept asking him, "Are you sure you want all that? That doesn't sound like it'll taste very good. Are you sure?" But he was not deterred. The companion came back up to me later to thank me and let me know he ate the entire thing and loved it. This mom and her kid would come into my store every Wednesday, and after the mom ordered something normal, the kid, who would always order himself, would ask for a, quote, plain sandwich. The first time I had to ask, but after that, every Wednesday, when I saw them walking up, I'd start working on that little guy's toasted bread and ketchup sandwich. Super gross sandwich order, but those 2 customers were always a bright spot in my week. Double salami and pretty much all the oregano in the house. No cheese, no sauce, no shame. Ex-Subway worker. There used to be a sandwich called The Feast, and we would ring a bell when someone ordered it. There was a guy who would order a feast, double meat, double cheese. The bread wouldn't even begin to fold. For reference, The Feast is what appears to be a sandwich with pepperoni, salami, turkey, ham, and maybe roast beef on it, with veggies. The sandwich itself looks like Pac-Man after he's about to devour one of the ghosts. And if you could imagine that gape of a hippo's jaw of bread being stuffed to the brim with meat, try adding double meat and double cheese to that, and you can see why it would be better off being an open-faced sandwich. My old boss took a trip to Hawaii to surf, rented a Jeep, and ordered enough $5 footlongs to last the week. That's all he ate all week, apparently. Stored them in the Jeep. No cooler, no refrigeration. All of those sandwiches were gross after a week in Hawaii temperatures. I don't know if they still do the seafood salad sandwich, but when I was a teenager, I had to prep that in the morning. It's a 5-pound bag of imitation crab and a gallon bag of mayonnaise, mixed with my gloved hands. The smell and texture was awful. Anyways, had an elderly gentleman come in on my Saturday shifts and get the seafood salad footlong, double meat with shredded cheese, toasted. Old guy tipped $1 every time. I used to go to this one Subway, and the artist really loved his job. He got to be stoned and make sandwiches. He knew people's orders. He was filled with fun Subway facts. He was the best part of going to Subway. I asked him what's the weirdest subs he has had to make. He told me that a lot of people from the Philippines ordered the seafood sub with marinara sauce on it, at least in that neighborhood. He thought it was super weird at first, and then after several people ordered it, he tried it himself and said he didn't hate it. It is time for this story to be told. When I was a stupid high school boy, my buddy Rob and I used to go to the same Subway at least a couple of times a week. There were 2 workers there, Mary and Roland, and whenever they transferred, we'd follow them to some other Subway, because they were nice to us and sometimes gave us deals. One day I went in there and said, "Roland, I bet you can't make me a sub that I can't eat." Roland goes in the back and comes back with 2 big freaking slabs of processed turkey. When you order a normal sub, that turkey is all sliced up. This was not sliced. It was just a brick of meat about 1.5 inches thick. He loaded it up with all the regular toppings, no screaming hot sauce or anything, and said, "There you go." Stupid high school boy me thought, this fool doesn't know who he's dealing with. I ask for an edible, and he gives me extra meat. 10 minutes and this thing is down the belly hatch. But a strange thing happens when you have to chew large portions of processed meat for a long time. You realize why they slice it up like that. It's because it's full of big, disgusting chunks of gristle, blobs of fat, probably a beak or 2, whatever made it into the turkey blender before it was pressed into a can. I can't remember whether I puked. Stupid high school boys puke a lot. But I do remember that I didn't even finish 6 inches of that thing. God bless Roland, wherever he ended up. Not only did he win the bet, he made a sandwich that still haunts my dreams 25 years later. Never worked at Subway, but I can tell you how to make any sandwich absolutely disgusting. Order it on flatbread, but don't let them toast it or warm it up. The flatbread tastes like Satan's skin when it's cold. Hey there, if you subscribe to Am I the Genius and Am I the Jerk, I might not judge you for your horrible Subway order. Link is in the description, and remember to support the video by liking and leaving a comment. Thanks for watching! Obligatory, I don't work at Subway, but I do work at a place that serves subs. Had an order for a while back for a chicken finger sub with hot sauce, tuna, pickles, and double mayo. Felt like I was preparing for a reckless eating video. Edit, for those who have asked, I work at a locally owned pizzeria. Okay, this contextualizes things because in my head, if you work at a pizzeria, the pizzas are really the main focus, not the sandwiches. So you have a specific way you make the sandwiches, and there isn't really a lot of modifications you can do. What I think this person did is that he saw that the place served chicken fingers and subs and had all of these toppings that were put on the sandwich and said to himself, oh yeah, I want all of that. He was just making up his own crap for the sake of making up a sandwich. Like, I hate the idea of the sandwich, but you gotta admire the man's creativity and opportunism. Okay, check it. Dude comes in like he's never been to a Subway before, which, that's okay. I'm ready to help. But he also acts like he has never had nor heard of a sandwich before. He gets the honey oat footlong, and that is where the logic stops. This joker asks, what's good? And I tell him that I like the meatball marinara. He gets that, with extra marinara mind you, and before I can even ask him about his cheese choice, he points to the tuna and goes, ew, what's that? I tell him what it is, he takes a good minute to think, and then he's like, okay, I'll get that too. I pause for a second, trying to process what he is asking me. Let me tell you, I take the title, quote, sandwich artist seriously, and I did not feel like an artist while spreading pasty tuna onto a marinara-soaked honey oat loaf. I felt dirty. So to follow this nutball's train of logic, he has me extra toast it without cheese, take it out, and he says two words that shook me to my core. Honey mustard. I'm an honest man, I like to think. A good man if I'm being generous. But I cannot think that any god would make me suffer for helping craft this abomination. I squeeze the bottle and give him 3 thick lines of that tangy god sauce. He says more. I give him more. I close it with an audible squelch emitting from the sub. I wrap it up, and when I look up to accept his money, I see his face. I see the excitement of a child about to go on a roller coaster for the first time. The guy is giddy, practically electrified with glee. I give him his foot-long effigy to sin incarnate. He leaves the store, and I go in the back to slice bell peppers and try to forget. Meatballs, teriyaki chicken, and salsa with all the salad and all the sauces. No, he wasn't high, and he ordered it like 3 more times. For breakfast, egg whites, American, and shredded cheddar, a double portion of seafood salad, toasted, oil, no vinegar. Had a few people that would order a double meat tuna sub and then want a ton of mayo added to it. Those sandwiches were already half mayo to begin with. I felt fatter just touching the thing. Also, another store under the same owner would regularly get people wanting cookies added to their subs. I'm pretty sure I was told the reasoning was that they thought it would count as a topping so they wouldn't have to pay for the cookies. Yeah, like I'm gonna get my full order and then say, oh, stick a cookie in there too, and then pry it out while it's drenched in marinara sauce. Back when I used to work in a Subway, I've seen a couple gross ones. Here's a few I can remember. This obese guy would walk in a couple times a week, take the cold cut combo. He asks for a ton of lettuce, followed by the largest amount of mayonnaise you can imagine. He always emptied half the cup of mayo. It was probably more than enough mayo for 12 to 15 average customers. He then added a few other vegetables and was good to go. It always made me sick making him such a sandwich as I knew I was killing him. Then, I've seen 2 normal-looking persons take every single sauce on the menu. Not like a very thin line or anything. Extra dosage of every sauce while looking at me to make sure I put enough of each. At Subway, you can ask to grill vegetables with your bread, cheese, or meat. I always grilled onions and peppers with mine for the flavor. Multiple people were doing this. Then this guy walks in and asks me to grill his sub at the complete end after asking for lettuce, pickles, and sauce on it. Edit, this got some attention. For those who are still passing through this, do not touch soup in a Subway or any other similar place. It's a pile of frozen junk, even if it tastes good. Edit 2. Just remembered one more. This guy ordered a wrap with 8 portions of bacon and 2 portions of steak. Cheese over the entire thing, no vegetables, and toasted. Yup, a toasted wrap. When I worked at Panera, a customer once ordered a tuna salad sandwich on a chocolate chip bagel. Not an artist, but was in line behind a guy. He got a chicken bacon ranch, double meat and cheese. Nothing weird yet. No toppings. Whatever, a lot of meat and cheese. All the sauces. What the heck? The Subway gal put a little line of each one on. Not good enough. He wanted it drenched in every sauce. He got a faint glob for each sauce, plus had them add marinara. When they tried to close the sandwich and cut it, it was oozing. He grabs it and sits down, basically slurping the thing. I was planning on eating there, but just couldn't. Got it to go and got the heck out of there. One of the grossest things I have ever seen. Okay, I was really curious about exactly what sauces are being put on the sandwiches, so I decided to look up the list of Subway sauces. People are putting oil, red wine vinegar, mayonnaise, mustard, honey mustard, buffalo sauce, sweet onion teriyaki, peppercorn ranch, Baja Chipotle, MVP Parmesan vinaigrette, and roasted garlic aioli on their sandwich at once. Some of these combinations I can get behind. I honestly put mayo and Baja Chipotle on mine because it makes this sort of spicy mayo mixture. It's really good. But if you get MVP Parmesan vinaigrette and red wine vinegar and buffalo sauce all at once, that's just gonna clash. We all know variety is the spice of life, but some people need to chill. Footlong Subway Club. I think double meat. Wanted extra cheese ×4 so they could have every single type of cheese on it. Every single vegetable, every sauce, and I mean every sauce, even mayo plus light mayo together, olive oil, vinegar, salt and pepper, oregano, Parmesan cheese. Not only was it disgusting, but it was a pain to actually wrap the thing up. Anytime someone ordered a tuna sub, it's basically vomit mixed with wall plaster. I had a guy order a meatball sub with extra meat, which in his case meant twice the meatballs. The juice alone from all those balls of meat made the bread like wet newspaper pretty much instantly. Way back in the day, I have no idea if this still exists, there was a rib sub, which was basically the roast chicken patty but in rib form, which was guaranteed to move through your bowels in no time. I worked during the Atkins craze, so anything to do with that still makes me shudder. Dude comes into my work every so often for a flatbread footlong, 1 egg white and 1 egg yellow. Add double meat tuna, toasted, and nothing else. I was a sandwich artist, thank you. Finally, a question I can answer that brings back the horrible memories of my soul-destroying time at Subway. There was this guy that I think was messing with me and the other girl there, but he ordered a foot-long wheat bread with every flavor of cheese we had on it, along with every condiment we had. Then, the man used a ketchup bottle he brought himself and used it all. His friends recorded him eating it, and I feel sick remembering it. This lady would come in every day and ask for a 6-inch honey oat, and made it very apparent that she wanted the bread soft. She had me put triple American cheese on it and 3 tomatoes and an ungodly amount of mayonnaise on it. That's it. Made me cringe watching her eat it. Hated that lady. I really hope that more people realize that mayonnaise is literally just like oil, eggs, and salt. And if you put way too much of it on a sandwich, you're just gonna taste oil, eggs, and salt. Like there's no other redeeming quality of that sandwich besides the fact that you put a gallon of mayonnaise on it. And it's not even like barbecue sauce, where the sauce is the point of barbecue. You may as well be eating mayonnaise out the jar with a spoon at that point. Late to the party, but this is hands down the worst sandwich I ever made. Dude comes in, orders a 6-inch cold cut, white bread. As I'm cutting the bread, he asks for mayo on both sides before the meat. So I do the old back and forth, both sides. He looks at me and says, "Not enough, man. I want like 1 inch on both sides." I used about a half bottle of mayo on that sandwich, put the meat on, and closed it up. He told me at the end that he lets it sit in the fridge for 3 days before he eats it. Nope. No way. If I let fast food sit in my fridge for more than a day, it gets inedible. Mans is out here marinating his meat in mayonnaise. Like, what are you people doing? Stop putting 1 billion pounds of mayonnaise on your sandwiches. I am begging you. Not Subway, but in high school, I worked at Hoagie Yogi, which does sandwiches and teriyaki bowls. I had a teenage girl come in and ask if I could make a foot-long pickle sandwich. So I took a small handful of pickles and spread them out over the bread. "Can I have more?" she asked. I took another, slightly larger handful of pickles and spread them over the bread. "Can I have more?" she asked again. I dug into the bin with both hands and spread 2 heaping piles of pickles across the bread, which was now soaking in vinegar. "Is that enough?" I asked. I thought I was calling her bluff. "Yeah, that's good." I folded the sandwich down as best I could. The pickles were stacked too high. I rang her up for a veggie sandwich, watched her take it to a table, and sit down to eat the whole thing. The bread was dark and soggy. Any pickles that fell out, she was quick to scoop up. It was gross, but fascinating at the same time. Okay, YouTube comments, hear me out on this one. Do you know somebody who is obsessed with pickles? And bonus points if it's specifically white girls who are obsessed with pickles. And I don't mean to exclude anybody else from that conversation. I just mean that white girls specifically are the demographic that's almost targeted to be obsessed with pickles. Am I the only one who's noticed this phenomenon, or am I just going crazy? Not a Subway worker, but ordered enough weird sandwiches to be rightfully judged. My brother and I used to have this ongoing competition where we would order the grossest sandwiches and see who could actually eat the most of it. Whoever ate the least had to pay for both sandwiches the next time we came to Subway. The grossest sandwich I ever ordered was a foot-long with that weird artificial fish and mayo stuff, spinach, olives, tomatoes, bacon, avocado, honey mustard, and barbecue sauce. To be honest, it was actually pretty good despite the texture, so I won that competition. I worked in Northwest Iowa, very agricultural. Lots of cold-cut trio on white bread with a crap ton of mayo, and that's it. I hated making it. I did not graduate from the Art Academy of Subway sandwiches to unwrap turkey plastic and splooge mayo up and down the block. I once had to make someone a black olive sandwich, like 3 handfuls of only black olive on Italian bread with extra olive juice. We had a guy who ordered the seafood, gross in his own right, and then would ask for black pepper. He would then say, "Put pepper on until I say stop." He would let you shake on pepper for a good 15 to 30 seconds. The sub was just a pile of mayo and soot. Surprised I never sneezed. Maybe that's what he wanted. I worked at a sub shop in Arizona, and this wasn't really gross, just peculiar. A girl would come in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and order a 16-inch sub with all the white cheese except yellow, and a, quote, 16-inch sub with 4 orders of bacon and no bread. I thought she was joking when she first came in, but I was subsequently reprimanded by the supervisor for laughing. Reverse. My friend used to work at a chain sub shop, and I love mayo. To screw with him, I would always just ask for unreasonable amounts of mayo on my stuff, because he thinks it's gross. He was about to ship out to the military, so before he left, I had him make me a meatball sub, but with no red sauce. All the red sauce had to be replaced with mayonnaise. He cringed, I ate it. It was a good day. In this thread, mayo. In fact, take a shot every time you hear the word mayo. I think you'll have less alcohol in you than these people have mayo in their systems at all times. Late to the party, but I've seen a Subway order that's shaken me to the core, and if I can spread the story to just one person, it's worth it. A lady in front of me orders a salad. So far, so good. Nothing to worry about. Then she says she would like it plain. The worker asks what she would like on her salad. She doesn't want lettuce, onions, or spinach. She orders 1 slice of ham in the middle of the plastic bowl. Then she asks for pickles. The worker puts a handful on, but the lady wants more. I'm perplexed in line behind her, and it's starting to get hard to keep a straight face. The worker piles on another 2 full handfuls of pickles on. The lady pipes up, "Can I just get a little more?" The worker gives her a wary eye but submits and adds 1 final handful to her bowl. She proceeds to pay, her final order being 1 slice of ham and the remainder of the bowl filled with pickles. I'm sorry, is this defined as plain? Like, if you say you want your salad plain, wouldn't that just be lettuce? If it's just lettuce, that's fine. I won't judge you for being boring or basic, but I will judge you for calling your ham and pickle bowl a salad. Go to the store and get a jar of Vlasic pickles and a tub of mayo and a 6-pack of Oscar Mayer lunch meat, and you can make your own sandwich for less money and time that you would spend going to Subway and having it done for you. And the best part is that you can eat the rest of the tub of mayo, eat the rest of the jar of pickles, you can even drink the pickle juice for all I care. Just stop torturing these poor Subway employees, please!
Those of you who don't have a degree and love your job, what do? I walk dogs. Everyone at work is always super stoked to see me and I never go home angry. Already a strong start. I drive a school bus and my elementary school kids are my favorite part of the day. I make $14 an hour and work 2.5 hours at a time and get paid for 6 hours a day unless I do a field trip or something. And most of the time, those are fun as hell. I get to go to the zoo, the science center. I went to a Cardinals game. I went to a swimming competition and got to stay in a nice hotel for a weekend getting paid the entire time. The only thing I would change about my job are the buttholes I have to share the road with. I'm a web developer. I dropped out of college to move home and take care of my mom. Motorcycle accident, permanent severe brain damage. I couldn't leave home. I had to be with my mom, so I did what I used to do for fun. PHP. I hated PHP though, so I researched what the most semantic and elegant solution to web development was. The research led me to develop with Python and Django. I made a website, Good Guy Gamers, that wasn't successful at all. It was way too much work for one person. I'm a terrible designer and marketer, but I put everything I had into making the site have cool, unique features and demonstrate my skill. It worked. I landed a job where I work near full-time for a great company for $40 an hour, and I have a huge say in what happens. I can work for 3 hours a day if I'm feeling awful or can't focus for some reason, or I can work 12 hours a day busting my butt on an exciting problem. The main point is I found what I'm passionate about, and I found a company that truly appreciates what I can do. Further, they appreciate what I could become with more experience. Great rule when looking for a job: look for a place with upward momentum and a workplace that actively wants to see you improve. I'm an educator at a small zoo. Not very common in the zoo community to work without a degree, but I was lucky to be grandfathered in. I started as a temporary worker, went to full-time animal care, and worked my way up to lead keeper. Education was a normal part of my keeper job anyway, so I jumped at the chance to do that full-time. I'm at the 1-year mark now, and I'm crazy about it. Teaching people about wildlife and habitat conservation while handling awesome animals is very rewarding. That does sound pretty cool. Construction. Winters are tough, but fresh air is a blessing.
Bartender, the parties, the stories, and the money to be made.
I'm a professional farrier. I've only been at it a few months, went to farrier school straight out of high school, but I love it, and I wouldn't change a thing. Though a lot of people are surprised when an 18-year-old girl shows up and manhandles their stubborn stallions and nags. I'd heard the name farrier, but I didn't know what it was until I just read this. I'm an air traffic controller, 23 years old, and at any given moment I have hundreds of human beings on my screen. For the most part, pilots do their thing and we do ours. While I wish to pursue a business degree, I'm not sure I would trade this job for anything. Excellent income, excellent benefits, and the fact that every day is slightly different than the last is pretty cool. I feel like I'm gonna see some kind of bot story or something at some point where it's like, do this, join this, we need you. Kennel attendant for the cat building of a no-kill shelter. Every shift starts at 7 a.m. Depending on the shift, I scrub vomit, clean dusty litter paw prints off everything, clean cage units, change out bedding, dump hundreds of pounds of dirty cat litter, and lug hundreds of pounds of clean bagged litter, scrub 50-some dirty litter boxes. It's by far the most physical labor-intensive job I've ever had, and by far my favorite job I've ever had. I'm part-time, the pay is not enough to support myself, but by God, I love it. For reference, I'm 25, 1 year of community college, and 1 year of awful degree mill art school under my belt. I live in a fantasy world where how successful I see myself is dependent on how happy I am. I'm looking for a second part-time job and also procrastinating getting serious about a sketch pet portrait business. I'm a pretty simple girl who loves animals and wants to make a positive difference in the world. I wish you luck, I support you, but I will remain steadfastly pessimistic. I kid. Of course. Honestly, I enjoy the outlook on this young woman. I think it's good to feel like needed, wanted, or feel like you're at your station in life, you know, what you're meant to be doing, or at least something that makes you happy, and that's all that really matters, you know? I'm a 911 dispatcher. High school diploma is all that is required. I actually do have a degree in women's studies, but it in no way helped me get the job. The thing that got me the job was customer service experience. I worked at an answering service for 2 years before this. My job is fantastic. I work 12-hour shifts and only work 15 days a month. 1 week I work Monday to Tuesday, then Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. The next week I only work Wednesday and Thursday. I get a 3-day weekend every other week. The work is interesting, but there's also loads of downtime in which we're allowed to browse the internet or read. There's no dress code, although pajamas are gently discouraged. Most importantly, you really do get to help people, so you leave at the end of your shift feeling like you've done something good for your community. It's fantastic. I work as a bus driver for people with disabilities. I love what I do because I feel like I'm giving back a little part of life these people had taken from them for whatever reason. It is very fulfilling. I love my clients. Mostly. I actually know quite a few people who worked with disabled people. Like, obviously I've heard good sides of it, and then I've heard absolute horror stories about the people who do not behave very well and some messed up stuff. I'm a welder or fabricator. It's almost always a one-man operation in my shop, which is good for me as a total introvert. I only get help moving and installing the really heavy pieces. I get to make custom steel pieces for custom houses. It feels great when the homeowner says I built all their favorite parts of their house, mostly handrails, furniture, doors, stairs, and all little odds and ends a modern house needs. I also get to do a little woodworking when it's needed. I'm a compliance analyst for a health insurance company. I started out as a clerk for my department and worked my way up to where I am now within 2 years. So now I'm responsible for making sure we're following federal regulations and perform audits on the work we do in addition to assisting my manager with changes that need to take place. It's an amazing job. I love the company and my manager, and I'm lucky to know that I'm still not done moving up within the company with the growth we're experiencing. I'm a taxidermist. I love my job. It takes my 2 favorite classes from high school and smushed them together, biology and art. I also find taxidermy like morbidly fascinating. I mean, has anyone ever seen that thing where it's like, I think a guy tried to taxidermy a lion but had never seen a lion before, so he had like the skin and everything, and instead of like making it look like a lion, it looked like one of those like really bad paintings of what people thought a lion looked like by second-hand descriptions. If you haven't seen it, type in bad taxidermy lion, it looks ridiculous. But then look up medieval lion painting and you will know the one. I roughneck on a drilling rig, make great money, $2,500 a week, and I work only 2 weeks a month and 6 months out of the year. Practically buy whatever I want, whenever I want. There's a lot of fights between the men out here, but if you can get past that and do your job right, you're pretty much your own man out here. I myself have considered working on an oil rig at one time or another when things get stressful. I'm like, I hate it here, but I also need to make money. Senior network penetration tester and security researcher. I've wanted to do this stuff since I was 10 and tinkered with everything since then. Paycheck or not, I love it. I get to travel all over, hack into Fortune 500s and not get in trouble, not that they usually catch me, and meet some amazing people. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Musician. I perform and record my own songs with some of my best friends in the world, and sometimes these crazy high schools pay me to arrange crappy pop music into fun choral pop music for their show choirs. I'd live in a box to keep doing this if needed. I work at Disney World, and although there are good and bad days, there is nothing that compares to the environment. You meet some amazing people and see some crazy things. For every one negative experience, there are 1,000 positive experiences. You can work your way up, or you can stay where you love working. They give you a lot of chances to improve after making a mistake and opportunities to further yourself. There will always be people who can only see the negatives, but they don't really understand that the magic is making someone else's day, even if it means sacrificing your own. Sounds like a bunch of propaganda to me. I'm joking. I actually went to Disneyland a while ago and I had a blast. Everyone was really lovely. The immersion, that Disney magic, I totally felt it. I had a great time. A little late to the conversation, but I work at a dog boarding facility that has it all. Grooming, daycare, boarding boarding, obviously, self-service baths, fostering and rescue and adoption, the whole shebang. It's really fun to work with all of the different personalities and breeds of dogs, and can also be challenging learning how to work around behavior, trust issues that some of them come in with. It can be tiring, though the 4-hour shifts I work here leave me way more tired than the 8-hour shifts I used to work in retail. But in the end, it is totally worth being with dogs all day. The only issue I have with where I work are some of my co-workers, but thankfully management has a good head on their shoulders. Otherwise, I love where I work and I hope to put in many more years. No qualifications, professional musician for 30 years. Wouldn't trade the worst year of being a pro muso for anything else. I love it that much. I have zero job security, no benefits apart from free alcohol, late nights, and sometimes recording sessions are booked early the following day. Long time away from home, traveling all the time, still wouldn't be doing anything else. That is the issue with not working for an almighty corporation or just being self-employed in general. You don't really know where your next paycheck's going to be coming from. I'm a personal shopper. I literally walk around a store all day collecting groceries to be delivered to people who are too rich and busy to do their own shopping. It's a pretty sweet gig, and being able to see how the other half lives makes me feel happy that I'm not a rich douche and reassures me that my financial priorities are intact. You didn't have time to buy a $2 loaf of bread and are going to pay $20 to have it delivered to your door? Really? I'm an event manager for an energy company in Texas. I get to tell people what to do, manage a $500,000 budget, and travel some. No degree. Experience matters most. Make $60K a year and earn almost twice what my wife with a master's makes.
Pizza delivery driver. Make great tips and get to jam to music while on the way to deliveries. And also, everyone at work, even the managers, smoke tons of devil's lettuce.
I work in the retention department for a cable company. I take 30 to 40 calls a day from people calling to cancel their cable. I usually take them out of it. I often slash their bills. I sometimes give them something for free. And every once in a while, they really do cancel. Every time they're mad or unhappy when the call starts, and every time at the end of the call, they're satisfied. It isn't a very easy job, but it is one that pays me pretty well. And I get free cable. I think that South Park episode has ruined me, you know, the one where like the cable people or like the TV people are just like, oh, you want to cancel your package? Really? I play video games for a living. More specifically, I live stream via Redacted so people can see what I play as I do my best to entertain them. My fans make it the best job in the world. I checked out the link to their Twitch channel and they were like taken off apparently for violations, but as far as I know about Twitch, it's very easy to get kicked off Twitch. Unless of course you're one of the golden boys or chosen ones that they decide can get away with whatever they want. Digital compositing in an animation studio. There's deadlines, sure, and it can get pretty stressful, but I love it. VP of operations for a steel foundry. I started working at the foundry my dad worked at out of high school just to make some money and never left the industry. I've spent the last 14 years of my life doing some really hard, dirty jobs, moving across the country, one foundry at a time, and learning all sorts of cool stuff. I started getting sent to Six Sigma training, then TPS. Now I'm pretty much my own boss, and I live where I've always wanted to live. Funny how things work out. I am a 35-year-old and I do CAD work for computer chips. In fact, I manage a team of over 10 people. Most have bachelor's or master electrical engineering degrees. I've been in the industry and doing this job since I was 19. I married my pregnant girlfriend when I was 18. My son is smart, respectful, and sarcastic. My daughter is smart, hardworking, and witty. I could not imagine a better life. I live in Seoul, Korea. My job is to commentate Korean professional gamers playing high-level games, usually StarCraft 2. I'm essentially a sports broadcaster for esports, and I do it abroad. It's a really fun job, and I don't regret for a second moving over here. My life changed when I got here, and it just keeps getting better. I'd never heard of StarCraft until StarCraft 2 came out, and I gotta say, I'm really surprised by that game's longevity. I sit in back of helicopter and fly around Bavaria all day, making sure we don't crash into stuff. I make about $30,000 a year, have no bills, and a house provided for me. Well, ain't some people just luckier than others? Construction superintendent. No day is the same and always meeting new people. Have to be on your toes all the time. Love the challenge. A degree doesn't guarantee the ability to do this job. Experience, multitasking, and problem-solving skills are must-have qualities. I'm an IT consultant and infrastructure architect for some of the most impactful IT environments in the country today. I have a great deal of satisfaction when I debate, convince, and badger people into doing things the right way to ensure that millions of people have their information protected protected and the environment is stable. Sitting down with what can't even be called a design and throwing out, then designing, implementing, and integrating everything from scratch is incredibly satisfying. And the working relationship I have with the team that all work together to make this happen is just, it's great. Still need to get paid more though. I am currently an arborist, tree climber, or tree trimmer. It's a fun job that is physically and mentally challenging. I also used to fight wildland fires, forest fires, with the US Forest Service. I was a member of an elite firefighting crew called a hotshot crew. It was a great job that I absolutely loved, but being gone almost all summer is difficult as a husband and father. Well, thank you for your service, and I have also played with the idea of being an arborist at one point. It's weird how many of these jobs have come up that I've even looked into. I am a power lineman. I climb power poles when applicable, bring electricity to where it is needed, put my crew on the moon, there wouldn't be a dark side. I am a cook at the Old Faithful Inn in Yellowstone National Park. A lot of these stories are like 10 years old. I do wonder if a lot of these people are still doing the same job, or maybe they moved on to even greener pastures that they enjoy even more. I'm a rope access technician for an inspection company. I love my job. I get to climb and rappel bridges, dams, roller coasters, refineries, buildings, and wind turbines to perform inspections, maintenance, and various tasks at height. Starting out pay was so well, I couldn't believe I didn't need a degree to do this. I have inspection certifications now that pretty much set me up for a career that is in very high demand. Rope access is exploding in this industry. It is such a fun job, I don't see why everyone isn't doing it. 3 words, buddy. Fear of heights. That's not referring to me. I am fine with heights. I used to be terrified of them, though, when I was a kid. I own and operate a cocktail lounge and restaurant. Started as a bartender, then manager, then GM. I eventually saved up to buy my first bar, eventually turned it into 4. I'm in my 40s and make more money than pretty much all my friends, a good 6-figure income. It was a long, hard road, but I'm set more or less. I could sell the lot and retire now, no worries. I love my career. It was a wonderful and hard road filled with focus, determination, and failure. It then eventually led to success. Degrees are extremely important, of course, but it doesn't guarantee success. You're limited to your own motivation and determination. Well, at least it seems that way to me. I do software support and a little development for a very large software company. I also occasionally visit custom sites to help them implement new versions of our stuff or whatever. However, I got very lucky getting this job. I was in university as a co-op student, and I took work term at a medium-sized software company. Worked there, loved it. They asked me to come back for a second term. In the middle of that one, my boss just offered me a full-time contract at $52K. At the time, I was broke and I absolutely hated my program, chemical engineering. So I took the job thinking I'd do it for a couple of years to get some savings to go back to school. That was almost 7 years ago. When I'm dealing with reasonable customers, the work is great. I solve puzzles. The only stuff I don't like dealing with is the political BS, i.e. our rules say that we shouldn't be on the phone with someone to hold their hand through very well documented procedures. But this customer sent an angry email to a manager, so we'll bend over backwards for them. I hate the squeaky wheels. However, there are tons of perks. For starters, I work from home. To not have to deal with rush hour traffic and be able to make my own lunch in my own kitchen has been very healthy for me. Secondly, I get paid a pretty good amount, $70K a year, currently with 1 to 2 raises a year and bonuses. I also get to write off parts of my electric and internet bills, among other things. Not to mention, I can work anywhere I want as long as I have a decent internet connection and I'm online during the hours I'm supposed to be online. This means I can go visit family or whatever without having to take a vacation. It's a pretty good gig. I write fiction online and draw donations from my readers for a livable wage. Writing like I do, putting up installments on a regular basis, it fixes many of the problems with writing. With regular writing, it's a lonely business. You don't get feedback or see if it'll take until it's done, and you don't get the money until it's done and successful. What I'm doing, I get regular comments. I can chat with my readers. I can shape the narrative if feedback indicates it's necessary. I do write my stories. Reader feedback can inform it, but it's not a choose-your-own-adventure. It helps that it's sort of marketing and social media on its own too. I finished my first story, a 26-book epic written over 2.5 years, and publishers, editors, startups, and agents in a small video game company have expressed interest in working with me. I have a wealth of options now, a large-ish audience of 12,000 plus readers at the height of my last story. That's very attractive to outside parties, possible Kickstarters, self-publishing, traditional publishing, or something in between. Generally speaking, I'm pretty stoked to get up in the morning these these days. It's nerve-wracking at times, those 15 to 20 minutes after my chapter goes live and before the first comment comes in, and there are ups and downs, but I love what I'm doing. Well, that just sounds like a dream. I love writing personally. I don't have that much confidence in my entire ability to write, like setting up areas or dialogue and whatnot, but I do have some concepts and ideas that I think are absolute gold, and I would like to get out there someday, so this just sounds cool. I'm a professional audio and lighting technician for live events, raves, rock shows, corporate meetings, politician rallies, fundraisers, sporting events, presidents, past and present, you name it, I've done it. I'm a broadcast engineer. There isn't a school for what we do. You just start from the bottom as a wireman and work your way up. You earn the right to be called an engineer, regardless of your education. When you watch a live televised event, say the Super Bowl or Academy Awards, there are usually a team of people making sure that all the cameras, audio, and video equipment on site is functioning. I'm one of those guys. Stress level is very high, but the skills and relationships you develop, it's worth it. Honestly, it's the perfect job for a single person, as you'll spend more time on a plane than anywhere else, but the scenery changes every day, and the pay at my company is the best in the industry. For the record, I am sorry if some of you get frustrated when I decide to change voice randomly, but sometimes I get bored just reading in the same voice. Pilot, I get to travel the world. The pay is crap, and you work a ton. I can't imagine doing anything else. I flew a plane once. It's very expensive to get even an hour-long lesson on a plane. It's crazy. Like getting your pilot's license, I believe, you need at least 60 hours in the air before you can move on to more stuff. I'm a butcher. It's kind of cool seeing all the cuts of meat you can get out of one section of an animal. Also, being able to take a 1,000-pound animal and turn it into something people can pick up at the store and throw in a pan for dinner is awesome. And now you're making me hungry.
What's a sensation that you're unsure if other people experience? Sometimes when I'm breathing, as I often do, I get this sharp feeling in my chest that I can only describe as feeling like something gets caught in my chest. Usually a few painful, deep breaths will make it go away. I've told my doctors, and they say they've never heard of anything like that before. So, I'm not a doctor, but WebMD tells me that this is a telltale symptom of precordial catch syndrome, which is described as a sharp pain in the left side of your chest near your heart. It's not a serious condition, but it does feel like you're getting stabbed in the chest, which is, concerning. They typically get worse with breathing, and they occur within a small area, and the pain is not due to the heart. So if you think you're having a heart attack because your chest hurts, maybe it's just precordial catch syndrome. Sometimes I get the feeling in the back of my neck accompanied by a weird sound, kind of like the sound of bubbles and sparkling water. It doesn't really bother me since it lasts less than a second, but I wish I could describe what it actually sounds like. This thread is full of people having mysterious things finally explained to them, so I'm gonna give it a shot. My eyelashes hurt, specifically the follicles. It's the same kind of pain like when you have a loose tooth, and it actually does seem to happen when the eyelash is, quote, loose. Like, it's twisted around and pointing the wrong way. I have yet to meet anyone else who experiences this. My doctor's only suggestion was to start washing my eyes daily with baby shampoo, and it's reduced it substantially, but not completely. It sucks. It's more of a lack of sensation than anything else, I guess, but maybe every few months, I get this feeling that everything is hollow and far away, like anything I want to do is meaningless. Anything I hear people say sounds like an echo, and even the thoughts in my head sound emotionless and distant. It usually passes after 5 minutes, but I've stopped asking my friends whether they know that feeling because of the looks I get. Sounds like ennui to me. The state of feeling disinterested in one's surroundings, having nothing to do, or feeling that life is dull. Sometimes I get sudden weird feelings of, I absolutely cannot be here in this place. This place is wrong. It's this intense sensation/thought that happens randomly. No, there's no apparent danger, just a weird feeling or sensation of absolute, I can't be here, this is wrong, I can't be here, I need to not be here. I don't have intense social anxiety or fear of public places or anything like that. It's happened since I was little. Not sure what triggers it, and it goes away after a few minutes. I get panic attacks pretty often, and that sounds like it to me. It's not for the same reason, like I don't get anxious in public spaces. It's mostly an internal thing, but panic attacks can happen for any reason at any time. I don't know how to describe it other than to say I can flex something inside my ears and it creates this deep rumbling sound in my head. Edit, just woke up and holy heck, RIP inbox. I've been able to do this as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, I used to pretend that doing this activated my latent psychic abilities. I actually can do this too, and it turns out that there's a subreddit called r/earrumblers assemble. YouTube comments, if you're an ear rumbler, get in there and tell me all about it. I once saw a patient that had visual snow, which is a rare visual disorder where you see constant static/snow patterns over your normal vision. She spent most of her life thinking it was normal, but it didn't get in the way of her normal day-to-day life, which is a relief. Just to clarify, visual snow needs to be constant and will usually have other symptoms like visual trailing, association with migraines, or problems with night vision as I understand it. It can also affect one's quality of life, so if you just experience it at night, then it is likely just Conan Rod, quote, noise, which is completely normal. If you see it only when looking at blue skies, etc., then that is called blue field entoptic phenomenon, which someone kindly posted below, and this can be associated with visual snow as well. If you believe you have visual snow, please see a doctor or optometrist and advise them that you think you may have a condition that is called visual snow. Just to add, my patient believed this to be normal as one of her family members also experienced it, and also believed it to be normal. But vision is a funny thing, and I guess we never really have discussions about what we see. Sometimes when I'm trying to sleep, my hands feel too large and my body feels all out of proportion. I can't get comfortable, and I have to turn on the lights and look at my hands for a bit for it to go away. I know that sounds weird, but it's the only way I can describe it. Bizarre. Edit. I woke up this morning with my inbox exploding, and I'm so glad that I'm not the only one here. And I love Pink Floyd, and I can't believe I didn't make the comfortably numb connection to Alice in Wonderland syndrome until now. I'm listening to it as I type this. When I hear someone in a public place describe their day or talk about something very specific to their life, I get an overwhelming sense of detachment from the world. The first thought that goes through my mind is, I'll never know anything about this person's life and they are sitting 3 feet away from me. And I zone out for a few seconds. I think sonder is the term for this, from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. Noun. The realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own, populated with their own ambitions, friends, routines, worries, and inherited craziness. An epic story that continues invisibly around you like an anthill sprawling deep underground, with elaborate passageways to thousands of other lives that you'll never know existed, in which you might appear only once, as an extra sipping coffee in the background, as a blur of traffic passing on the highway, as a lighted window at dusk. My sister and I call it tickle thumb, but it's when you're laughing too much and try to pick something up or press something with your finger and thumb but have no strength. Of course, it makes us laugh harder and prolong the tickle thumb. Good luck trying to explain it to someone who doesn't know it though. I see unfathomably large objects sometimes when I close my eyes to go to sleep. They're random shapes, but usually a big sphere. They're so large it's overwhelming, but I've kind of learned to keep my eyes closed and let them appear instead of opening my eyes to make them disappear. Edit. Whoa. The first time I remember experiencing this was when I was a kid and sick with an ear infection. I was half awake and having nightmares. It still happens to me now. I'm 25, but I haven't found the quote trigger. Last time it happened, I was drunk. That everyone is always playing this game that they won't snap out of. Instead of just being themselves and saying what they feel, they act like they're in a play or in a chess game or something. And there's always this weird layer of separation between who they actually are and what they're allowing you to interface with. Even with people I feel close to, I've tried to have conversations about this and it still feels like they just refuse to snap out of it. I can't tell if other people are also acutely aware of a lack of candidness in everyone around them all the time, and they also get tired of it but play along because everyone else is, or if people are just really like that. I think a lot about what people are like when they're alone, and what exactly the differences are between that person and the person I get to interact with. It's strange to me that even with a really candid conversation about it, and with what seems like open acknowledgement of the phenomena by the person I'm talking to, they still don't feel truly present. There are only a few people I've ever met in my life who I actually felt were completely genuine without any facade. So I wonder if other people have noticed that, or if I'm just delusional. Hey, hope you're enjoying the video. Remember to drop a like and leave a comment, and subscribe to Am I the Genius and Am I the Jerk, linked in the description below. Thanks for watching. Whenever I'm in a room where it's mostly dark, but there is some light, and I focus on whatever, ground, wall, nothing, my eyes start to darken the entire room until I basically have the view of my eyes closed, but my eyes are open. Edit. Okay, so I can see a lot of other people experience this. One thing though is the fact that the outline of objects glows really high at some point. Sometimes it's not even objects. My eyes would focus on whatever, and when it's dark, it starts, quote, glowing in phases, as in the ground gets really bright and then dims back down. Repeat. I get shooting pains on both sides of my lower jaw, under my ears, when I start eating anything sweet. The only other person I know who gets it is my dad, so it must be genetic. That could be a partial subluxation of the sublingual salivary gland and also the submandibular salivary gland that flex and swell when you juice your mouth way too quickly with saliva and spit for digestion. I assume it's when you've not had anything to eat for a while? I can't believe I read all that medical stuff on my first take. Sometimes when I'm lying down, I feel as though my whole body is swinging from side to side really quickly. When I'm tired, I can kind of control it, but no one ever knows what I'm talking about. Hey, I get this, and I actually got diagnosed. It might not be the exact same, but I have benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. It's basically vertigo induced from lying in a certain position. For some people, it could be very intense. It actually stops me from sleeping sometimes. Usually I can stop it by focusing really hard or by opening my eyes and looking at something. Mine is caused by crystals that developed in the balance part of my ear. You have this fluid, and basically this tells your brain how your body is oriented. That's why if you spin around a lot, you get dizzy. So these crystals can become dislodged and start swirling around, causing your brain to think you're spinning. If people are struggling with this, there's a specific set of movements you can do that is supposed to stop it. It happens pretty rarely, but I'll be laying down somewhere, and then I start getting this feeling of combined sleepiness/warmth that seems to make everything seem better and lets me appreciate the smaller things, like how soft the thing I'm laying on is, or how the sun is peeking through the window, or how nice it is to just exist. It doesn't last very long, and it only happens when I haven't been doing or thinking about stressful things in a while. Edit, it isn't just happiness. It's like advanced happiness. I don't know, it's hard to describe now. About once a month, I get this really weird mental feeling. It's really hard to explain, but I guess it's almost as if everything has become too real? Like life before was a video game I was playing or in, and now that game is real. Coupled with not feeling emotions like I think I should, and I worry sometimes. I have that too. Sometimes I'm doing some light chore, cleaning a table, brushing teeth, taking a quick shower, etc., and I, quote, snap awake for a brief moment, especially if I'm looking at a mirror. It's bizarre. It's like turning off autopilot. This is me. I'm alive. I breathe and eat. Someone birthed me. I've changed lives with my very existence. I have a body that responds to my actions to the point where I don't even notice it. People I've known have died of natural causes, among those lines. Then I just forget about it. It's happened less than a dozen times in my life. Sounds like depersonalization, derealization. I have it too. It's scary. I regularly feel like I'm just faking my way through life, that all my supposed job skills aren't really there, and I've just been lucky that I haven't been caught out yet. I'm fairly sure this isn't true, but I can't help but feel it. That's what we call imposter syndrome, baby. As a creative, I feel this. It really can feel like you're just faking your way through everything, making videos, drawing, anything like that, and thinking that it's just not good enough. Obviously, it's not true, as people will gladly tell you that the things you're making are great, and there is genuine work and technique being put in. But it feels like it's for nothing. It's always that strive for perfection. I physically feel pain whenever I hear silverware being moved around and clinking together. Like, I'd literally prefer to leave the room than hear that. Nothing else makes me feel this way, but it makes me be careful when I or anyone around me unloads or loads a dishwasher. Sounds like misophonia to me. By concentrating on the area just behind my forehead, I can get a wave of sensation pulsating from that spot backwards through my head and to the base of my neck. The longer I concentrate, the more intense it can get. I know one other person who has described the same thing. I'd love to hear of others with this and if they have explored it much. Also, if I shine really bright lights straight onto my closed eyelids, I feel a little bit of inexplicable joy and clarity. Edit, not ear rumble/tensor tympani. I have no auditory sensations with it, and the sensation emanates particularly from my forehead. Pretty sure not ASMR, based on descriptions of it and the fact that there is nothing else that causes the sensation to occur for me. Also not free zone, because, well, I can do that voluntary too, and I know the difference. That falling feeling you get sometimes when you're laying in bed, then you flail around a little bit trying to stop yourself. Called a hypnic jerk. As I understand it, it happens when your body is falling asleep but your mind is still awake, and the feeling of falling unconscious triggers a flight or fight response. When I see a bus pass or when I'm on a train and get to my station, I always think about getting on that bus or staying on the train and seeing how far I can go. Just not tell anyone, not answer the phone, not show up to work, and keep going. Sometimes, relatively rarely, I will go into the third person for just a moment. I will see myself doing whatever I'm doing for no more than a second as if I was playing a video game. I know it's not 100% synced up though because I fell down the stairs the last time it happened. Oftentimes, if I've been laying down for a prolonged period of time, when I stand up really quickly, I'll feel a head rush and then go totally blind for around 5 seconds. I've had people relate with the head rush, but I have yet to find someone who has experienced the sudden blindness too. If I've been sitting around for a few days, I sometimes get an uncomfortable feeling in my muscles, leg muscles especially. There's a burning restlessness that drives me to get up off my butt and at least move around some. It doesn't matter how lazy I might prefer to be. My body says I've got to get up and move. I've never heard anyone else talk about the sensation, and I'd like to know what it's called. Restless leg syndrome. I get it when my body wants to go to bed, actually. Makes me get up off the couch and go to sleep. Maybe not a sensation so much, but for some reason, music can make me really emotional. For some reason, sometimes I'll be singing along to a song, even something funny like a parody, and I won't be able to get through it without choking up. If it was just really sad songs, I could understand, but like I said, it'll even happen with like Weird Al songs. I mean, thinking about how long it must have taken to get that take on Hardware Store where he's listing out all of the things that they have at the hardware store, I'd probably cry too. Some advertisements make me deeply sad, especially for irrelevant products like soaps or razors. It's all the meaningless promotions on the packaging to make the products seem more appealing. Maybe it's all the work I know was put into something that 99.9% of people are never going to read. I don't know. It's happened to me for as long as I can remember. This happens every so often with myself, but I feel like I'm just reliving my life through memories. It's like I'm telling someone the story of my life and I'm recounting all of it. It's a weird but interesting sensation. I think this is pretty common, but I haven't seen it mentioned yet. While driving, sometimes I'll have the urge to ram the car in front of me and or swerve into oncoming traffic. It's not an urge to off myself, just an inexplicable craving of wanting to smash into something. I kind of equate this to the feeling of wanting to jump when near the edge of a steep cliff, which I know is a relatively common phenomenon. Yeah, this is called call of the void, or more commonly, intrusive thoughts. Which, by the way, small rant, I never liked how people said that they let their intrusive thoughts win when it comes to something as mundane as like sticking a hot dog in between 2 slices of bread instead of a bun. No, intrusive thoughts are about stabbing your mom with a knife while you're preparing dinner together, or something akin to that. It's intrusive because it's unwarranted and can make you feel like an awful person just for thinking it. But they're not always based on some Freudian desire to go goblin mode. They're just your brain thinking a little too much. It's really nothing to worry about. After a 24-hour alcohol bender, during the hangover, I'll hear pitches about a quarter step sharper than they really are. I have absolute pitch, and am now sober following a gnarly ride with alcohol. Of all the hangover systems I got, quote, the sharps were the most unsettling. Dehydration of your inner ear fluid would be my guess. Changes the shape of the ear canal until your body can replenish it, so everything would sound different. This has actually happened to me before. I don't have perfect pitch or absolute pitch or anything like that, but I think one time I was either sick or I just woke up and my ear was feeling pretty off. It's like whenever I would whistle, I would hear like multiple tones over each other. It's like I was harmonizing with myself, but in the worst way possible. And listening to music sucked because it was like the song sounded awful when I knew that it sounded alright before. Thankfully, it never happened to me again, but that was weird. It doesn't happen so much to me in adulthood, but I swear that when I was a kid, homesickness was a distinct, visceral, nearly physical emotion. For instance, say I was 6 and staying at my cousin's house for the weekend without my mom. There would be quiet moments, maybe near bedtime, where it wasn't just, I miss my mom, I wonder what she's doing. Rather, it would be a potent, melancholic ache where I was acutely aware that I was not at home and my mom wasn't there. And it would overcome me out of nowhere. I had no more control over it than if I suddenly felt chilly. I thought everyone experienced this, homesickness, as its own separate and extreme emotion, but I remember mentioning it to a friend in middle school and she had no idea what I was talking about. What's really weird is that from time to time, I'll get the homesick pain feeling again in situations where it makes no sense. I will already be at home, my family will be there, etc. Then I drink water and that fixes it. Go figure. This is your daily reminder to drink water today. Noticed it when I was a kid. Sometimes there are moments when I touch a rough or really dry surface and I get a cold shiver up my spine plus goosebumps. Some examples would be concrete, brick, or the cloth seats in my car. It is so odd because it doesn't happen all the time. Another example is if I've just finished washing my hands and they are really dry, maybe after using a crappy soap, and then I reach for something in my jean pocket. Nobody I've mentioned it to seems to have experienced it before. ADHDer/fellow sensory issue haver here. I relate to this a lot, actually. I can't stand certain sensations. I have an anti-ASMR response whenever I hear whispers into really sensitive microphones. My eyes start watering, strangely enough. Some fabrics feel really bad to me, especially if it's anything woolly against my dry skin. It tends to feel prickly. I also can't stand using a manual toothbrush. It gives me bad tingles. I've used an electric one for several years now. But those are my quirks. If you've had any weird sensory experiences, what are yours? Let me know in the comments. I know I'm not the only person that experiences this, but I frequently have exploding head syndrome, usually after long periods of irregular sleep. I work rotating shifts. When I lay down to go to sleep, it feels like a huge rush of energy and a cacophony of voices from people who I recently talked to fills my entire head. It only lasts a few seconds, but it makes me feel extremely anxious and paranoid after. Sometimes I feel like I'm dissociating when it happens too. I'm not as freaked out by it now since I know what it is, but the first few times were really bad experiences. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, linked at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot, linked in the description too. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.